Zionism formed in Europe as the national movement of the Jewish people. It sought to reestablish Jewish statehood in the ancient homeland. The first wave of Zionist immigration, dubbed the First Aliyah, lasted from 1882 to 1903. Some 30,000 Jews, mostly from the Russian Empire, reached Ottoman Palestine. They were driven both by the Zionist idea and by the wave of anti-Semitism in Europe, especially in the Russian Empire, which came in the form of brutal pogroms. Is it pogroms or pogroms? I think it's pogrom. No, I think it's pogrom. They wanted to establish Jewish agricultural settlements and a Jewish majority in the land that would allow them to gain statehood. They mostly settled in the sparsely populated lowlands, which were swampy and subjected to Bedouin robbers. Oof, that's some Lord of the Rings ranger territory, guys. Oh my god, D&D. The Arab inhabitants of Ottoman Palestine, who saw the Zionist Jews settle next to them, had no national affiliation. They saw themselves as subjects of the Ottoman Empire, members of the Islamic community, and as Arabs geographically, linguistically, and culturally. Bedouin. Bedouin? Bedouin. Their strongest affiliation was their clan, family, village, or tribe. There were no Arab or Palestinian Arab nationalist movements. In the first 2 decades of Zionist immigration, most of the opposition came from the wealthy landowners and noblemen who feared they would have to fight the Jews for the land in the future. When did TVs get invented, guys? What was the first television set? When were TVs popular? Television replaced radio as the dominant broadcast medium by the 1950s and took over home entertainment. I'm trying to think, would people in the Middle East know like what's going on with Jewish opinion, or I guess with the war, you've got like reporters and writers that go back and forth and stuff. I'm curious like how in tune, like if I want to know right now, like what do Jewish people think in Romania, I can Google it, right? Or I imagine 20, 30, 40 years ago, you can make phone calls and stuff. I guess you have like radio and stuff. I'm curious, like it feels like accessing information because none of it can be like on demand unless you have like a newspaper, I guess. Yeah, papers are probably really important. Oh, hi, babe.
So sexy.
Yeah, newspapers would have been the main source. Hassan stream. True. Did they have color TV when you were a child? Shut up. All right. Most of the opposition came from the wealthy landowners. No one who feared they would have to. Oh, okay. There's no Arab Palestinian. Okay. In the first 2 decades of Zionist immigration, most of the opposition came from the wealthy landowners and noblemen who feared they would have to fight the Jews for the land in the future. In the beginning of the 20th century, the Jewish population of Ottoman Palestine was between 60,000 and 85,000. 2/3 of them members of the Zionist movement, mostly living in 40 new settlements. They encountered very little violence in the form of feuds and conflict over land and resources with their Arab neighbors or criminal activity. Between 1909 and 1914, this changed as Arabs killed 12 Jewish settlement guards and Arab nationalism and opposition to the Zionist enterprise increased. In 1911, Arabs attempted to thwart the establishment of a Jewish settlement in the Jezreel Valley, and the dispute resulted in the deaths of 1 Arab man and 1 Jewish guard. The Arabs called the Jews the New Crusaders, and anti-Zionist rhetoric flourished. Tensions between Arabs and Jews led to violent disturbances on several occasions, notably in 1920, 1921, 1929, and 1936 to 1939. Fuck, I wonder if I should record these 3. This is just other background. This is interesting. So, between 1909 and 1914... violence sparked. The Balfour Declaration wasn't until 1917 though, right? I think declaration. Yeah, it was 1917. What is this? Girl at a party asked to see my YouTube recommendations because it's a good test for red flags, and this was the first recommendation I had. Nice. Based. During the war, World War I, Palestine served as the front line between the Ottoman Empire and the British Empire in Egypt. The war briefly halted Jewish-Arab friction. The British invaded the land in 1915 and 1916 after 2 unsuccessful Ottoman attacks on Sinai. They were assisted by the Arab tribes in Hejaz, led by the Hashemites. Do you think they DM'd little girls? And promised them sovereignty over the Arab areas of the Ottoman Empire. Palestine was omitted from the promise, first planned to be a joint British-French domain, and after the Balfour Declaration in 1917, a national home for the Jewish people. The decision to support Zionism was driven by Zionist lobbying led by Chaim or Chaim Weizmann. Many of the British officials who supported the decision supported Zionism for religious and humanitarian reasons. They also believed that a British-backed state would help defend the Suez Canal. This is in Egypt, right? The Suez Canal, I believe. Suez Canal, Google Maps. Oh. Gotcha. Is this whole land right here is all part of like Egypt proper, right? The Sinai Governorate? Or is this like an autonomous region of Egypt? Is it like Crimea used to be for Ukraine? It's fully Egypt. Okay. Tanks have pushed into Gaza. The ground invasion is happening. Disagreements among Israeli leaders delay Gaza ground invasion. Israel conducts ground incursion in Gaza. Tanks roll through border area. Does Palestine possess any weapons to defeat, like, armored vehicles? Can they do anything, or... Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, Christ. Drones are a game changer. Anti-tank devices from Iran, probably IEDs. Can IEDs destroy tanks? I don't know how strong like IEDs are. If it's like a tank destroying device, or if it just destroys like APCs or Jeeps or whatever. Yes, depends. Yes, depends. Okay. The ones next to hospitals, yes, okay. Today in New York and the United Nations, I say frankly to the American statesmen who are now managing the genocide in Palestine that we do not welcome the expansion of the war in the region, Amir Abdullahian said, but I warn if the genocide in Gaza continues, they will not be spared from this fire. It is our home and West Asia is our region. Saying Hamas is ready to release civilian prisoners, then added that the world should support the release of 6,000 Palestinians who are also held as prisoners, though in Israel. In addition, while the United States itself is actually and in practice and directly involved in committing crimes against Palestinians, it is not in a position to invite others to exercise self-restraint and refrain from spreading the war. The foreign minister said, therefore, we strongly warn against the uncontrollable consequences of the unlimited financial arms and operations of the White House to the Tel Aviv regime. Jesus. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Reminder, Kick brings us this incredible content. It's going to be the 2 chairs, isn't it? Oh, never mind. Oh, yes, it is. Good one. Wait, are you sick or do you think I'm sick?
I think Melina's sick.
Oh, is she? Okay. Jesus. I don't know if you're on some bomb squad shit. Following the World War II, the surrounding Arab states were emerging from mandatory rule. Transjordan, under the Hashemite under Abdullah I, gained independence from Britain in 1946 and was called Jordan in 1949, but remained under heavy British influence. Egypt gained nominal independence in 1922, but Britain continued to exert a strong influence on it until the Anglo-Egyptian Treaty of 1936. Limited Britain's until this treaty. Oh, thank you. Is this more lamb, guys?
No, pork.
Pork. Wow. Thanks.
Melina in there?
What?
Is Melina in there?
No, she's gone.
Okay.
Tanks are super vulnerable to unconventional warfare with immobilization and firebombs, not well suited for urban environments. Stuff like MATVs are more suited to the environment. Gotcha. Wait, do you want to make her like a plate? Do you have extra?
Alright, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. I think she'll be back in a bit. Lebanon became an independent state in 1943, but French troops did not withdraw until 1946, the same year Syria won its independence from France. In 1945, at British prompting, Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Transjordan, and Yemen formed the Arab League to coordinate policy among the Arab states. Iraq and Transjordan coordinated closely, signaling a mutual defense treaty, while Egypt, Syria, and Saudi Arabia feared that Transjordan would annex part or all of Palestine and use it as a stepping stone to attack or undermine Syria, Lebanon, and the Hijaz. The fuck is this? Or Hijaz? Hijaz? Is a region which includes the majority of the west of Saudi Arabia, covering the cities of Mecca, Medina, Jeddah, Tabuk, Yanbu, Taif, Baljarashi. Gotcha. Mecca is the place with the box, right? The Kaaba. Fuck me. This thing. Do you see the Harvard doxing truck situation? It's related and would love to hear your take on it. Is that where people are putting up on trucks the people that supported Hamas and then like parking outside their house or whatever? I disavow. I don't think that's that level of doxing is insane. I think that like names attached to things you're going to declare as part of a student org, I think having your name attached to that is pretty important. I agree with that. But like doxing where the people live, I think that's too far. I think that's fucked up, not good. The 1947 UN plan. So a lot of this is rereading stuff we already covered, but that's fine. What about driving around school? Why do you need their addresses? The only reason why you would have addresses on anything is to encourage people to go into people's houses to harass them. November of 1947, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution recommending to the United Kingdom as the mandatory power for Palestine and to all other members of the United Nations the adoption and implementation with regard to the future government of Palestine of the Plan of Partition with Economic Union, UN General Assembly Resolution 181. That was this bad boy right here. This was an attempt to resolve the Arab-Jewish conflict by partitioning Palestine into independent Arab and Jewish states and the special international regime for the city of Jerusalem. This honestly sounds base. It's like a three-state solution, basically, right? You've got your Palestinian state, your Jewish state, and then you've got like the city of Jerusalem is like international territory, I guess, that everybody kind of has access to. but rip. Hindsight is 2020. Each state would comprise 3 major sections. The Arab state would also have an enclave at Jaffa in order to have a port in the Mediterranean. Yeah, they even have like access to the sea and everything too, right? Yeah. With about 32% of the population, the Jews were allocated 56% of the territory. I thought it was 57% of the territory. Wait, what? Control F, 57. Oh, maybe it was 56%. Oh, fuck me. Oh, I did put 56 in here. Never mind, I just remembered wrong. Okay. Contained 499,000 Jews and 438,000 Arabs, and most of it was in the Negev desert. The Palestinian Arabs were allocated 42% of the land, which had a population of 818,000 Palestinian Arabs and 10,000 Jews. In consideration of its religious significance, the Jerusalem area, including Bethlehem, with 100,000 Jews and an equal number of Palestinian Arabs, has become a corpus separatum to be administered by the UN. The residents in the UN-administered territory were given the right to choose to be a citizen of either of the new states. The Jewish leadership accepted the partition plan as the indispensable minimum, glad to gain international recognition, but sorry that it did not receive more. The representatives of the Palestinian Arabs and the Arab League firmly opposed the UN action and rejected its authority in the matter, arguing that the partition plan was unfair to the... Oh, the Jewish people did accept this one. I'm sorry, fuck, I told Lorna Bucks they didn't. The Jews did accept this one. The Arabs rejected the partition, not because it was supposedly unfair, but because their leaders rejected any form of partition. They held that the rule of Palestine should revert to its inhabitants in accordance with the provision of the Charter of the United Nations. According to Article 73b of the Charter, the UN should develop self-governance of the people in a territory under its administration. In the immediate aftermath of the UN's approval of the partition plan, explosions of joy in the Jewish community were counterbalanced by discontent in the Arab community. Soon after violence broke out, it became more prevalent. Murderous reprisals and counter-reprisals came fast upon each other, resulting in dozens killed on both sides. The sanguinary impasse persisted as no force intervened to put a stop to the escalating violence. Okay. We're gonna keep reading. The first phase of the war took place when the United Nations General Assembly vote for the partition plan for Palestine on the 29th of November 1947 until the termination of the British mandate in Israeli proclamation of statehood on the 14th of May 1948. During this period, the Jewish and Arab communities of the British Mandate clashed, while the British organized their withdrawal and intervened only occasionally. The first 2 months of the Civil War, around 1,000 people were killed and 2,000 injured. And by the end of March, the figure had risen to 2,000 dead and 4,000 wounded. These figures correspond to an average of more than 100 deaths and 200 casualties per week in a population of 2 million people. Oh, wait. No, okay. From January onwards, operations became increasingly militarized. A number of Arab Liberation Army regiments infiltrated Palestine, each active in a variety of distinct sectors around the coastal towns. They consolidated their presence in Galilee and Samaria. The Army of the Holy War, under Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini's command, came from Egypt with several hundred men. Having recruited a few thousand volunteers, al-Husseini organized the blockade of the 100,000 Jewish residents of Jerusalem. To counter this, the Yishuv authorities tried to supply the city with convoys of up to 100 armored vehicles, but the operation became more and more impractical as the number of casualties in the relief convoys surged. The music is too loud. By March, al-Hasuni's tactic had paid off. Almost all of Haganah's armored vehicles had been destroyed. The blockade was in full operation, and hundreds of Haganah members who had tried to bring supplies into the city were killed. The situation for those in the Jewish settlements in the highly isolated Negev and north of Galilee was more critical. This caused the U.S. to withdraw its support for the partition plan, and the Arab League began to believe that the Palestinian Arabs, reinforced by the Arab Liberation Army, could end the partition. The British decided on the 7th of February 1948 to support Transjordan's annexation of the Arab part of Palestine. While the Jewish population was ordered to hold their ground everywhere at all costs, The Arab population was disrupted by general conditions of insecurity. Up to 100,000 Arabs from the urban upper and middle classes in Haifa, Jaffa, and Jerusalem, or Jewish-dominated areas, evacuated abroad or to Arab centers to the east. David Ben-Gurion ordered Yigal Yadin to plan for the announced intervention of the Arab states. The result of his analysis was Plan Dalet, or Plan Delay, I don't know, which was put in place at the start of April. The adoption of Plan Dalet, I guess, delay, marked the war's second phase in which Haganah took the offensive. The first operation, Natch Shan, with these fucking words, bro. Can we get some U.S. conflict history? Was directed at lifting the blockade on Jerusalem. In the last week of March, 136 supply trucks had tried to reach Jerusalem. Only 41 had made it. The Arab attacks on communications and roads had intensified. The convoy's failure and the loss of Jewish armored vehicles had shaken the Yeshuv's leaders' confidence. 1,500 men from Haganah's Givati Brigade and Palmek's Harel Brigade conducted sorties to free up the route from the city between the 5th of April and the 20th of April. The operation was successful, and 2 months' worth of foodstuffs were trucked into Jerusalem for distribution to the Jewish population. The operation's success was aided by al-Husseini's death in combat. Rip. During this time, and independently of Haganah or Plan Dalet, irregular troops from Irgun and Lehi formations massacred 107 Arabs at Deir Yassin. The event was publicly deplored and criticized by the principal Jewish authorities and had a deep effect on the Arab population's morale. At the same time, the first large-scale operation, the Arab Liberation Army, ended in a debacle as they were roundly defeated at Mishmar Hayimik. Their Druze allies left them through defection. Are an Arab and Arabic-speaking esoteric ethno-religious group from Western Asia. Which race has the most annoying names to pronounce? I don't know, probably like Chinese or something? I'm not sure. It's going to be some Asian language. Within the framework of creating Jewish territorial continuity, according to Plan Dalet, or Delay, the forces of Haganah, Palmuk, and Irgun intended to conquer mixed zones of population. Tiberias, Haifa, Safed, Besan, and Jaffa were taken before the end of the mandate, with Acre falling shortly after. Or Acre? I don't fucking know. More than 250,000 Palestinian Arabs fled these locales. The British had essentially withdrawn their troops. The situation pushed the neighboring Arab states to intervene, but their preparation was not completed, and they could not assemble sufficient forces to turn the tide of the war. The majority of Palestinian Arab hopes lay with the Arab Legion of Transjordan's monarch, King Abdullah I. He did not intend to create a Palestinian Arab-run state, as he hoped to annex much of Mandatory Palestine. Playing both sides, he was in contact with the Jewish authorities and the Arab League. Ooh, spooky. Jesus. Preparing for Arab intervention from neighboring states, Haganah successfully launched Operation Yiftah and Ben Ami to secure the Jewish settlements of Galilee and Operation Kilshon. This created an Israeli-controlled front around Jerusalem. The inconclusive meeting between Galda Meir and Abdullah I, followed by the Kfar Etzion massacre on the 13th of May by the Arab Legion, led to predictions that the battle for Jerusalem would be merciless. What is this? Refers to a massacre of Jews that took place after a 2-day battle in which Jewish kibbutz residents and Haganah militia defended Kfar Etzion from a combined force of the Arab Legion and local Arab men on May 13, 1948, the day before the Israeli Declaration of Independence. A kibbutz is an intentional community in Israel that was traditionally based on agriculture. Okay. Controversy surrounds the responsibility of the role of the Arab Legion in killing those who surrendered. How many died? 127. Gotcha. Wow, Marco Jim Mersick. Thanks for the $4.99, buddy. Let's see. On the 14th of May, 1948, the day before the expiration of the British Mandate, David Ben-Gurion declared the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Israel to be known as the State of Israel. Both superpower leaders, U.S. President Harry S. Truman and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, immediately recognized the new state, while the Arab League refused to accept the UN partition plan. Proclaimed the right of self-determination for the Arabs across the whole of Palestine, and maintained that the absence of legal authority made it necessary to intervene to protect Arab lives and property. Over the next few days, contingents of 4 of the 7 countries of the Arab League at the time, Egypt, Iraq, Transjordan, and Syria, invaded the former British Mandated Palestine and fought the Israelis. They were supported by the Arab Liberation Army and corps, I think it's corps, right, of volunteers from Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, and Yemen. The Arab armies launched a simultaneous offensive on all fronts. Egyptian forces invaded from the south, Jordanian and Iraqi forces from the east, and Syrian forces invaded from the north. Cooperation among the various Arab armies was poor. Was the Arab Liberation Army just like Palestinians, or alternative to their salvation was an army of volunteers in the Arab countries led by Fawi al-Kawuji? Jesus, I fought on the Arab side. It was set up by the Arab League as a kind of the Arab High Committee's Holy War Army, but in fact, the League... Target figure for recruitment was 10,000. The number of volunteers who joined the army reached around 6,000 and increased much beyond that figure. It's including mainly Syrians, Lebanese, Palestinians, and a few hundreds of Iraqis, Jordanians, Muslim Brotherhood from Egypt, Circassians, I think, and Bosniaks. Gotcha. Nice flag. Invading countries were Egypt, Iraq, Transjordan, and Syria, supported by the Arab Liberation Army and corps of volunteers from Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, and Yemen. Good to know. If you're looking for a more Palestinian perspective, I recommend checking out... No, I'm not looking for anything right now. I'm literally just reading the fucking Wikipedia, and then we'll go from there, okay? Nate Pilled, I have no idea how the Young Turks factor in this. I don't know why you spammed this question like 500 times, okay? Jesus Christ, please. The UN declared a truce on the 29th of May, which began on the 11th of June and lasted 28 days. The ceasefire was overseen by UN mediator Volk Bernadotte and a team of UN observers, army officers from Belgium, the United States, Sweden, and France. Bernadotte was voted in the General Assembly to assure the safety of the holy places, to safeguard the well-being of the population, and to promote a peaceful adjustment of the future situation of Palestine. He spoke of peace by Christmas, but saw that the Arab world had continued to reject the existence of a Jewish state, whatever its borders. Bernadette, is it really? An arms embargo was declared with the intention that neither side would make gains from the truce. Neither side respected the truce. Both found ways around the restrictions. Both the Israelis and the Arabs used this time to improve their positions, a direct violation of the terms of the ceasefire. The Arabs violated the truce by reinforcing their lines with fresh units, including 6 companies of Sudanese regulars, a Saudi battalion, and contingents from Yemen and Morocco, and by preventing supplies from reaching isolated Israeli settlements. Occasionally, they opened fire all along the lines. The Israeli Defense Forces violated the truce by acquiring weapons from Czechoslovakia, improving the training of its forces, and reorganizing the army. For weapons coming from Czechoslovakia, what would the route be? Are these shipped in through like the Mediterranean, essentially, or? Czechoslovakia is like Southern Europe, right? By plane? Really? Big boat. Czechoslovakia on a map. Is it like Central Europe? Or I guess Central Southern Europe? I don't know, bro. South of Germany. Thanks. Holy Christ, this is Czechoslovakia. Map of the old Republic of Czechoslovakia, 1974. Improving the training of its forces and reorganizing the army. Yitzhak Rabin, an IDF commander who would later become Israel's 5th prime minister, said, "Without the arms from Czechoslovakia, it is very doubtful whether we would have been able to conduct the war." As well as violating the arms and personnel embargo, both sides sent fresh units to the front. Israel's army increased its manpower from approximately 30,000 or 35,000 men to almost 65,000 during the truce. Jesus, in 30 days, almost doubled their fighting forces. And its arms supply to more than 25,000 rifles, 5,000 machine guns, and more than 50 million bullets. As the truce began, a British officer stationed in Haifa said the 4-week-long truce would certainly be exploited by the Jews to continue military training and reorganization while the Arabs would waste them, feuding over the future divisions of the spoils. On the 7th of July, the day before the truce expired, Egyptian forces under General Mohammed Naguib renewed the war by attacking Negba. The second phase. Israeli forces launched a simultaneous offensive on all 3 fronts, Dani, Dekel, and Kedem. The fighting was dominated by large-scale Israeli offensives and a defensive Arab posture and continued for 10 days until the UN Security Council issued the second truce on the 18th of July. What's like the rationale behind truces? You're just like, hey, can we just like pause for a second? Or is it like humanitarian crises between like civilians or... Israeli Operation Dani resulted in the expulsion from Lida and Ramleh of 60,000 Palestinian residents. According to Benny Morris, in Ben-Gurion's view, Ramla and Lida constituted a special danger because their proximity might encourage cooperation between the Egyptian army, which had started its attack on Kibbutz Negba and the Arab Legion, which had taken the Lida police station. Widespread looting took place during these operations, and about 100,000 Palestinians became refugees. In Operation Dekel, Nazareth was captured on the 16th of July. In Operation Brosh, Israel tried and failed to drive the Syrian army out of northeastern Galilee. By the time the second truce took effect at 7 o'clock on the 18th of July, Israel had taken the lower Galilee from Haifa Bay to the Sea of Galilee. 1900, on the 18th of July, second truce of the conflict went into effect. After intense diplomatic efforts by the UN, on the 16th of September, a new partition plan for Palestine was proposed, but it was rejected by both sides. Haifa is pronounced Haifa? Haifa? Is it just Haifa? If you want to break for an upload, August would like Hassan Minhaj did a reply to the article exposing him as a liar. Link below. Uh-oh. Did we read that New Yorker article? During the truce, the Egyptians regularly blocked the passage of supply convoys to the beleaguered northern Negev settlements by firing on them, contrary to the truce terms. On the 15th of October, they attacked another supply convoy, and the already planned Operation Yoav was launched. Its goal was to drive a wedge between the Egyptian forces along the coast and the Beersheba, Hebron-Jerusalem road, and to open the road to the encircled Negev settlements. Yoav was headed by the Southern the Operation Success. Okay, we don't need to read every... We had a third truce before the dawn. Ceasefire. Looking at Israeli use of biological warfare. Research by Israeli historians Benny Morris and Benjamin Keter show that during the 1948 war, Israel conducted a biological warfare operation codenamed Cast Thy Bread. According to Morris and Keter, the Haganah initially used typhoid bacteria to contaminate water wells in newly cleared Arab villages to prevent the population, including militiamen, from returning. Later, the biological warfare campaign expanded to include Jewish settlements that were in imminent danger of being captured by Arab troops and inhabited Arab towns not slated for capture. There was also a plan to expand the biological warfare campaign into other Arab states, including Egypt, Lebanon, and Syria, but they were not carried out. Jesus. Let's see, we've got armistices. Israel lost, let's see, at the end of all of this, casualties. Israel lost 6,373 people, about 1% of its population in the war. About 1% in the war. We know we're talking about a war. 4,000 soldiers. What the fuck is this sentence? The exact number of Arab losses is unknown, but is estimated at between 4,000 for Egypt, 2,000, Jordan and Syria, 1,000 each, and 15,000. What the fuck is... What the fuck is this sentence? Can somebody translate this to me? Between 4,000 for Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, and 15,000. Oh, so the total estimate is between 4,000 and 15,000? Where the fuck does the extra 15,000 come from? Or is it just trying to say that, like, Egypt lost as much as Jordan and Syria together? Is your talk with Shapiro going to be strictly about the conflict? I don't know if we're talking about the conflict at all, my dude. Why do you trust Wiki? I don't know, because it's like a publicly modifiable dictionary. Why do you trust open source code? I don't know, what should I be reading instead? If it's something that's incorrect, then I imagine I'll probably, when I do additional reading or additional documentary viewing or additional video or speaker information, I'd probably, if I see something that contradicts this, then I would go dig through primary or secondary sources or whatever to find out instead of just using a encyclopedia, right? Like Arab losses is estimated between 4,000 and 15,000. LeMayo justifying Wikipedia. Sean Warwick, what should I be reading instead? We'll wait. We're waiting. Sean Warwick in YouTube chat, tell us. When are you going to start preparing for the Shapiro debate? Well, I'm waiting for Lex to give me a topic, so.
Most of us would have rather money than tangible wealth. And a great occasion is somehow spoiled for us unless photographed.
A lot of people are starting to hate Wikipedia because of Elon's tweets. Oh, they're parroting Elon Musk's hatred of Wikipedia over the last few days. There's a talk page on Wikipedia where almost every sentence is heavily debated. Oh, is Elon like tweet? Oh, so that's your daddy is shitting on Wikipedia, so now you don't like Wikipedia? Okay, well, give me an alternative, dude.
This is a disaster. Or as a result of confusing the real world of nature with mere science, we are destroying things. We are so tied up in our minds that we've lost our senses. Time to wake up. What is...
Does he not have anything for us?
Obviously, no one can say, because it isn't words.
At Destiny, what I'm really wondering about you is how a month ago you said Palestinians should be ethnically cleansed, but you're only now doing the wiki dive. What I said a month ago was that it seems like the only resolution to this conflict is going to be one side wiping out the other. That's what I said. I didn't say anybody should be ethnically cleansed, you fucking retard. See ya. Except for you. Is Sean not going to tell us what we should be reading instead? Well, if Sean comes out and lets us know, then, you know. Demographic consequences. During the 47 to 48 civil war in mandatory Palestine and the 1948 Arab-Israeli war that followed, around 700,000 Palestinian Arabs fled or were expelled. In 1951, the UN conciliation, sorry.
To go on. We must go on.
1951. Estimate the number of Palestinian refugees displaced from Israel was 711,000. This number did not include displaced Palestinians inside Israeli-held territory. The list of villages depopulated during the Arab-Israeli conflict includes more than 400 Arab villages. Let's check. Well, we should add this at the end. Over 700,000 displaced Palestinians that fled or were expelled from their land as a result. Causes of the 1948 Palestinian exodus are a controversial topic among historians. The Palestinian refugee problem, the debate around the right of the return are also major issues of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Palestinians have staged annual demonstrations and protests on the 15th of May each year. Wait, did he answer? Oh no, sorry, I thought I saw. Sean responded. Wait, what did he say? No, fuck you. Can you reduce volume? Is the music seriously too loud? I don't believe you. Fuck you. During the 1948, he said, I'm not the one doing the research. Okay, fuck off, retard. During the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, around 10,000 Jews were forced to evacuate their homes in Palestine or Israel. The war indirectly created a second major refugee problem, the Jewish exodus from Arab and Muslim lands. Partly because of the war between Jews and Arabs in Palestine, hundreds of thousands of Jews lived in the Arab states were intimidated into flight or were expelled from their native countries, most of them reaching Israel. The immediate reasons for the flight were the popular Arab hostility, including pogroms triggered by the war in Palestine and anti-Jewish governmental measures. In the 3 years following the war, about 700,000 Jews immigrated to Israel, where they were absorbed, fed, and housed. Jesus Christ. 700,000 Jews exodus from Arab and Muslim lands immediately following the war, fleeing into Israel. The 3 years following the war, fleeing into Israel, fleeing. In the 3 years following the war, where they were absorbed, fed, and housed. Mainly along the borders and in former Palestinian lands, beginning in 1948 and continuing to 1972. An estimated 800,000 to 1 million Jews fled or were expelled. Okay, that's a lot further into the future. An estimate, wait, okay, so this is from 1948 to 1970. So this isn't an additional million. This is including the 700,000, I think, right? From 1945 until the closure of 1952, more than 250,000 Jewish displaced persons lived in European refugee camps. About 136,000 of them immigrated to Israel. More than 270,000 Jews immigrated from Eastern Europe, mainly Romania and Poland, over 100,000 each. Over 700,000 Jews settled in Israel, doubling its Jewish population. Is the music coming from the stream? No, it's coming from your computer. The Jewish exodus from the Muslim world was the migration, departure, flight, and expulsion of around 900,000 Jews from Muslim-majority countries in West Asia, North Africa, and to a lesser extent Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia in the 20th century. Predominantly in response to the creation of Israel, the exodus mainly transpired from 1948 to the early 70s, with one final exodus from Iran in 79 to 80 following the Iranian Revolution. An estimated 650,000 of the departees settled in Israel. A number of small-scale Jewish migrations began in many Middle Eastern countries in the early 20th century, with the only substantial Aliyah, immigration to the area today known as Israel, coming from Yemen and Syria. I mean no ill with the wiki question. I am a dumb boomer, but the goodest friend of stream. All Labaka. Wow, thanks, Canon. Few Jews from Muslim countries immigrated during the period of mandatory Palestine. Prior to the Israeli Declaration of Independence in 1948, approximately 800,000 Jews were living in lands that now make up the Arab world. Of these, just under two-thirds lived in French and Italian-controlled North Africa, 15 to 20% of the Kingdom of Iraq, 10% in Egypt, Kingdom Egypt, and 7% of the Kingdom of Yemen. The first large-scale exodus took place in the late 40s and early 50s, primarily from Iraq, Yemen, and Libya. In these cases, over 90% of the Jewish population left, despite the necessity of leaving their property behind. Jesus. Read about the Iraq treatment of Iraqi Jews after 48. Yeah, maybe. The Israeli government's policy to accommodate 600,000, between 40 and 51, 260,000 Jews immigrated to Israel from Arab countries. The Israel government's policy to accommodate 600,000 immigrants over 4 years, doubling the existing Jewish population. The waves peaked at different times in different regions over the subsequent decades. The peak of the exodus from Egypt occurred in 56 following the Suez Canal crisis, the Suez Crisis. The emigrations from the other North African Arab countries peaked in the 60s. Lebanon was the only Arab country to see a temporary increase in its Jewish population during the period due to an influx of Jews from other Arab countries. Although by the mid-1970s, the Jewish community of Lebanon also dwindled. 600,000... Why would they write 600,000 here with the words and 260,000 here with the numbers? The fuck? In Israel, the descendants of the Jewish immigrants to the region, known locally as Mizrahi Jews, look up Aliyah to see the migrations from segment. Shows the number of the first Aliyah. Okay. Believe it or not, the article is edited by multiple people. What? At the time of the Muslim conquest of the 7th century, ancient Jewish communities had existed in many parts of the Middle East and North Africa since antiquity. Jews under Islamic rule were given the status of dhimmi, along with... What the fuck is this? It's a historical term for non-Muslims living in an Islamic state with legal protection. The word literally means protected person, referring to the state's obligation under Sharia to protect the individual's life, property, as well as freedom of religion in exchange for loyalty to the state and payment of the jizya tax, in contrast to the zakat or obligatory alms paid by the Muslim subjects. Dhimmi were exempt from certain duties assigned specifically to Muslims. They paid the poll tax, but were otherwise equal under the laws of property, contract, and obligation. What, I wonder what the difference is between the jizya tax and the zakat, tax was, or alms, I guess. Curious if there were like significant differences or if it was roughly equal. Since the war, different historiographical traditions have interpreted the events of 1948 differently. The words of the new historian Avi Shleim, each side subscribes to a different version of events. In the Israeli narrative, the war is Israel's war of independence. In the Palestinian narrative, the war of 1948 is inextricable from the Nakba. The Zionist movement is one of settler colonialism, and the Israelis are seen as conquerors and the Palestinians as victims. The different narratives of 1948 reflect these different perceptions. An issue affecting the historiography of 1948 is access to sources and archives, which may have been destroyed, appropriated, censored, or otherwise made unavailable to some or all researchers. Linguistic barriers represent another hurdle, as most research is published exclusively in the author's native language and is not translated. The historiography of 1948 is tied to political legitimacy in the present and has implications for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, according to Avram Sella and Neil Kaplan. Wait, what? At Destiny, not trying to troll, but isn't it just a bit odd how you hate on people like Hassan for doing, well, basically exactly what you're doing right now, giving your opinion whether right or wrong, biased or unbiased? Yes, bro. You're very good observation. A major reason for the gripe of the past of the present is the unfulfilled quest of both Israelis and Palestinians for legitimacy. In one or more of the following three senses. A, each party's sense of its own legitimacy as a national community entitled to its own sovereign state. B, each party's willingness to grant legitimacy to at least part of the competing national narrative of the other. And C, the international community's extension of legitimacy to the competing rights and claims of Israelis and Palestinians. The narratives of 1948 have also had implications for Palestinian refugees. Israeli narratives. The Israelis, whether or not they were conquerors, were irrefutably the victors of the war, and for this reason, among others, they were able to propagate more effectively than their opponents their version of this fateful war. Only in 1987 was that narratively effectively challenged outside of the Arab world. Avi Shleim gives the conventional Zionist narrative, or the old history of the 1948 war, as follows. The conflict between Jews and Arabs in Palestine came to a head following the passage on the 29th of November 1947 of the United Nations Partition Resolution that called for the establishment of two states, one Jewish and one Arab. The Jews accepted the UN plan despite the painful sacrifices it entailed, but the Palestinians, the neighboring Arab states, and the Arab League rejected it. Great Britain did everything in its power toward the end of the Palestine Mandate to frustrate the establishment of the Jewish state envisaged in the UN plan. With the expiry of the mandate and the proclamation of the State of Israel, 7 Arab states sent their armies into Palestine with the firm intention of strangling the Jewish state at birth. The subsequent struggle was an unequal one between a Jewish David and an Arab Goliath. The infant Jewish state fought a desperate, heroic, and ultimately successful battle for survival against overwhelming odds. This is a bit dramatized. During the war, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled to the neighboring Arab states, mainly in response to orders from their leaders and despite Jewish pleas to stay and demonstrate that peaceful coexistence was possible. After the war, the story continues, Israeli leaders sought peace with all their heart and all their might, but there was no one to talk to on the other side. Arab intransigence was alone responsible for the political deadlock, which was not broken until President Anwar Sadat's visit to Jerusalem 30 years later. According to Shleim, this narrative is not history in the proper sense of the word, as most of the literature on the war was produced not by professional academic historians, but rather by participants of the war, politicians, soldiers, and state-sponsored historians, as well as by sympathetic journalists, chroniclers, and biographers. It also portrays Israelis as morally superior, lacks political analysis, and gives undue weight to the heroic feats of the Israeli fighters. This nationalist narrative was taught in Israeli schools and used for gaining legitimacy internationally. New historians. The standard Zionist narrative of the war remained unchallenged outside the Arab world until the war's 40th anniversary, when a number of critical books came out, including Simha Flapan's The Birth of Israel, Myths and Realities, Benny Morris's The Birth of the Palestinian Refugee Problem, Ilan Papp's Britain and the Arab-Israeli Conflict, 1948 to 1951, and Shleim's Collusion Across the Jordan, King Abdullah, the Zionist Movement and the Partition of Palestine, 1988. These writers came to be known as New Historians or Post-Zionists. According to Shleim, the New Historians disagreed with the Zionist narrative on 6 main points: British policy with regard to the Yishuv at the end of the Palestinian Mandate, the military balance in 1948, the origins of the Palestinian refugee problem, the nature of relations between Israelis and Jordanians during the war, Arab aims in the war, and the reasons peace remained elusive after the war. Among the most vitriolic critics was Shabtai Teveth, biographer of David Ben-Gurion, who published The New Historians. This guy was like the first Israeli prime minister or leader, or what would he be called? Was the national founder of the State of Israel, as well as the state's first prime minister. Okay, Ben-Gurion. Ben-Gurion or Ben-Gurion? Einstein's cousin? Was he actually? Fuck you. Ben Gurion? Ben Gurion? That was based on the hair? Yeah, I can see that. But hey, listen, we're all Jewish, right? Among the most vitriolic critics, biographer of David Ben-Gurion, who published The New Historians, a series of 4 weekly full-page articles attacking the New Historians in Haaretz, May 1989. Teveth claimed that the new historiography was flawed in its practice and that it was politically motivated, that it was pro-Palestinian and aimed to delegitimize the State of Israel. Neo-Zionist narratives. Ilan Pape identifies a turn in predominant Israeli narratives about 1948 in September of 2000. The climate of the Second Intifada and in the post-9/11 period, not only were Israel's brutal military operations against the Palestinians during the new Intifada seen as justified, but so was their systematic expulsion in 1948. Evidence of the expulsions, massacres, and war crimes of 1948 brought to light by the new historians could no longer be ignored, but writers of what Pape calls a neo-Zionist narrative justify these as necessary or unavoidable. In this period, the focus of Israeli historical writing on 1948 shifted largely from its human impact back to its military aspects. New Zionist writers were given selective access to top-secret material to which writers critical of Zionism would not have been given access, and much of their work was published by the Israeli Ministry of Defense. Among those Pape associated with the neo-Zionist perspective were Benny Morris, who had become more outspokenly defensive of Zionism by this time. Wait, Benny Morris was also part of the New Historians, right? Yes, okay. Daniel Gutwin, Mordecai Bar-On, Yoav Gelber, Tamir, Jesus Christ. As well as the journal Teklet. Palestinian narratives. Unlike Israeli narratives that shifted over the decades, Palestinian narratives of 1948 have been more or less constant, focusing on Palestinians' indigenous rights to Palestine, Palestinian victimhood, dispossession, displacement, exile, statelessness, and more unrequited grievances against colonialism Zionism. Yoav Gelber identifies Arif al-Arif's 6-volume An Nakbar, written in Arabic in the 1950s, as thorough and notable. Benny Morris was Giga pro-Palestine until his family members got murdered by Palestinians. Benny Morris went a little kooky after the Second Intifada. A lot of his friends died. Jesus. Palestinian narratives have focused on countering the dominant Zionist narrative. The preeminent Palestinian historian of 1948, Walid Khalidi, has dedicated much of his career to disproving the official Israeli narrative that the 1948 Palestinian expulsion and flight was voluntary. Rashid Khalidi and other historians hold that there is no established authoritative Palestinian master narrative. They attribute this to, among other reasons, the dispersed and fragmented state of the Palestinian community and the lost, destruction, or appropriation by Israel of relevant documents and libraries. Without access to much in the way of archival materials, Palestinian historians have made use of oral history. Arab narratives. In the narratives of the wider Arab Muslim world, 1948 is seen as an Arab debacle, representative of the region's social and political decline from its glorious distant past. The official narratives of Arab states on 1948 tended to be apologetic with the goal of defending their political legitimacy, while the Arab nationalists wrote with a focus on distilling and extracting historical lessons to galvanize Arab society, politics, and ideology in preparation for the next conflict with Israel. Neither approach bridled itself too much with historical accuracy. Western narratives. In the United States, the American journalist Joan Peters' 1984 book, From Time Immemorial, had a massive impact on how 1948 was understood in popular and political narratives in the United States. Ilan Pape asserts that the neo-Zionist narrative was pushed in the United States more passionately by Michael Walzer and by Anita Shapira and Derek Penzlar with their 2003 Israeli Historical Revisionism from Left to Right. The 2021 film Farha tells the story of a Palestinian girl in the 1948 war. Wow. Established Israel as an independent state. Who recognized the? I think I read the Soviet Union and the United States recognized. Yes, recognized immediately by Truman, U.S. and Stalin, USSR. I think the Truman quote is they can go be Jewish somewhere else. Wait, that's a meme, right? I don't know. Okay. That's a Brittany Simon meme. Yeah, I know, but I mean, bro, who knows? It could be a quote. All right, there we go. How far are we through this? Mandate for Palestine. The last day of the mandate, the Jewish community there issued the Israeli Declaration of Independence. After the failure of the United Nations partition plan for Palestine, the 47 to 49 Palestine War ended with mandatory Palestine divided among Israel, the Jordanian annexation of the West Bank, and the Egyptian All-Palestine Protectorate in the Gaza Strip. Transjordan was added to the mandate following the Cairo Conference. March. No, I don't care about this. Okay, background. Jesus. Okay. Do we need to read all of this, or do we basically skip ahead now? This is all prior to, like, the 30s, I guess. If we were to dive into here, we'd be filling out this place up here. This would be going through all the different agreements, like the Sykes-Picot Agreement, like this League of Nations shit. I think there were a couple others that were made and then redrawn. No. I'm curious, in this original Declaration of Independence for Israel, did they state what they would do with Palestinians or the Palestinian people that lived there? I'm curious. Or is this text in English anywhere? Jesus Christ. The borders were not specified in the declaration, although its 14th paragraph indicated a willingness to cooperate in the implementation of the UN Partition Plan. The original draft had declared that the borders would be decided by the UN Partition Plan. While this was supported by Rosen and Becker, Shalom, Sheetrit, it was opposed by Ben-Gurion and Zisling, with Ben-Gurion stating, "We accepted the UN resolution, but the Arabs did not. They're preparing to make war on us. If we defeat them and capture Western Galilee or territory on both sides of the road to Jerusalem, these areas will become part of the state. Why should we obligate ourselves to accept boundaries that in any case the Arabs don't accept?" RIP. Here's a copy of the Declaration of Independence. Wait, isn't this the article I'm on right now? The second major issue was over the inclusion of God in the last section of the document. The draft using the phrase, and placing our trust in the Almighty. The two rabbis, Shapira and Lehuda Leib-Mayim, argued for its inclusion, saying that it could not be omitted, with Shapira supporting the wording of God and strongly opposed by Zisling, a member of the secularist Mapam. At the end of the phrase, Rock of Israel was used, which could be interpreted as either referring to God or the land of Eretz Israel. Should probably write these quotes down and double check the context. Well, I mean, I understand the context. They're basically saying that, like, yeah, we're our own nation now, and these fuckers are going to go to war with us, and, like, listen, we're not going to restrict ourselves to old borders if, you know, we end up capturing land, and these guys didn't even want the old borders, right? No, it was the actual text of the declaration, but there's also a link in the page you're reading. Oh, is there... Yeah, I'm curious... I'm just really curious what the plan was for the Palestinian people initially. Like, I'm curious, for instance, like, did Israel, when it was founded as a state, were they like, we are going to kick the Palestinians out, fuck these guys? Or were they like, we're going to try to incorporate all the Arab Palestinian people into our country as nice as we can? But because, like, they would have, the Jewish people would have still been a minority. Oh, no, maybe they wouldn't have actually with the way that they drew up the borders, maybe? Or with the planned... No, that's right, because the planned borders for Israel with the UN partition would have been, with the Jewish people as being a slight majority, I believe, right? No, the Jews were a minority even within their borders. Were they? UN. Okay, hold on. I should just have a link to this in here. Dumb. Based. I thought they had a slim majority. The Arab state would have 725,000 Arabs, 10,000 Jews. The Jewish state would have 407,000 Arabs and 498,000 Jews. So they'd still be a majority in their state, but only slightly. Okay, Control F. We appeal. Fuck, the original text is not here. Wait, Urk, can you link me? Don't put my name in it. We appeal in the very midst of the onslaught launched against us now for months to the Arab inhabitants of the state of Israel to preserve peace and participate in the upbuilding of the state on the basis of full and equal citizenship and due representation in all of its provisional and permanent institutions. It's on the bottom of the info box on the page you are reading. Oh, okay. Good one. Wait, did Urk link this? Oh, never mind. Somebody else linked it. Okay, here we go. Fuck. Hold on one sec. Mel needs her for a second. 13-1. All right, what was this? Declaration, Independence, 1948. Oh, this is very short. I should probably just have this here. Israel declares independence. declares independence at Tel Aviv on May 14th, 1948. Oh, that should probably go down here, huh? No, wait, let's leave it right there, actually. Okay. Hey, this is off topic, but in my speech class, when your presentation on streaming reaction content, could I get a quick note or argument for it and one response to why people say so? Why are you doing a school speech of reaction content? What, bro? Okay. The land of Israel is the birthplace of the Jewish people. Here their spiritual, religious, and political identity was shaped. Here they first attained to statehood, created cultural values of national and universal significance, and gave the world the eternal book of books. After being forcibly exiled from their land, the people remained faithful to it through their dispersion and never ceased to pray and hopefully return to it. I should read. What is the, I wonder, it doesn't matter. I wonder what the original Jewish claim for dispersion from the land of Israel is, or the land of Palestine, I guess, I don't know. Or cease to pray and hope for their return to it and for the restoration in it of their political freedom. Impelled by this historic and traditional attachment, Jews strove in every successive generation to reestablish themselves in their ancient homeland. In recent decades, they returned in their masses. Pioneers, Map'ilm, Hebrew. Immigrants coming to Eretz. Wow, aims for growing. Thanks for the 5 gifted subs. Hold on. Somebody keeps wanting me to address my pro-genocidal.
I see. What do you think's the right move?
Honestly, I'm pro-genocide. Like, it sounds really shitty, but like, I think that Israel should just draw its fucking borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place. That's really shitty, but like, that's about where I'm at. Nice. True. I am pro-genocide. Congratulations. Okay, good job. Impelled by this historic and traditional attachment, Jews strove in every successive generation to reestablish themselves in the ancient homeland. In recent decades, they returned to their masses. No, we already read this. Wait, why do they... Wait, do Jews write their years like this? In the year 5657. Or 1897. What the fuck is this? Are Jews from the future or some shit? The fuck is this bullshit? At the summons of the spiritual father of the Jewish state, Theodore Herzl, the first Zionist Congress convened to proclaim the right of Jewish people to national rebirth. This right was recognized in the Balfour Declaration on the 2nd of November 1917, reaffirmed the mandate of the League of Nations, which was pretty catastrophe which recently befell the Jewish people. The massacre of millions of Jews in Europe was another clear demonstration. It's the year since Genesis? Oh no, they're young Earth creationists? Survivors of the Nazi Holocaust in Europe, as well as Jews from other parts of the world, continue to emigrate or migrate, undaunted by difficulties, restrictions, and dangers, never cease to assert their right to a life of dignity, freedom, and honest toil. The national homeland. In the Second World War, the Jewish community of this country contributed its full share to the struggle for freedom and peace-loving nations to the forces of Nazi wickedness, and by the blood of its soldiers and its war effort, gained the right to be reckoned among the people who founded the United Nations. On the 20th of November, passed a resolution calling for the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Israel. The General Assembly required the inhabitants of Eretz Israel to... Is Eretz Israel like the shorthand name for historic Palestine? Is that what they're using here? During the League of Nations mandate period, the term Eretz Yisrael, or the land of Israel, is part of the official Hebrew name of Mandatory Palestine. Okay, gotcha. All right. Worth pulling up a clip from the documentary Tentura on YouTube. Has some wild first-hand accounts from Jewish soldiers. Okay, I'm good. This right is the national right of the Jewish people to be masters of their own fate, like all other nations, and their own sovereign state. Eretz is earth. Gotcha. Accordingly, we, members of the People's Council, representatives of the Jewish community of Eretz Israel and of the Zionist movement, are here assembled on the day of the termination of the British mandate over Eretz Israel and by virtue of our natural and historic right on the strength of the resolution of the United Nations General Assembly, hereby declare the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Israel to be known as the State of Israel. We declare that, with effect from the moment of the termination of the mandate being tonight, the eve of the Sabbath, the 6th ER, 5708, holy fuck these years, until the establishment of the elected regular authorities of the state in accordance with the Constitution, which shall be adopted by the elected constituent assembly, not later than the 1st of October 1948, the People's Council. The State of Israel will be open for Jewish immigration and for the ingathering of the exiles. It will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants. It will be based on freedom, justice, and peace as envisaged by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religions, and it will be faithful to the principles of the Charter of the United Nations. The State of Israel, now I believe there would be conflict here, right? Because the Charter of the UN talks about the right of a people to self-determination. I'm sure the Palestinians in the area probably don't like that, but yeah. But the State of Israel is prepared to cooperate with the agencies representatives of the UN in implementing the resolution of the UN General Assembly on the 20th of November 1947 and will take steps. When people talk about the 1948 borders, are they talking about that 1947 UN resolution? Is this what they're talking about? Okay, so the 48 borders were this 47 resolution. Gotcha. Okay, just curious. But they probably just mean because after the war, when Israel started taking territory, that's why those borders changed so much. The State of Israel is prepared... No, they meant post-1948 war. Wait, do they mean the borders after the war? Oh, okay, never mind. Post-1948 war. Gotcha. Wait, no. What do people mean when they say 1948 borders? According to the Green Line agreed upon in the 49 armistice agreements, Israel is demarcated by Lebanon to the north, the Golan Heights under Syrian sovereignty, as well as the rest of Syria to the northeast, the Palestinian West Bank and Jordan to the east, and by the Palestinian Gaza Strip and Egypt to the southwest. Wait, am I retarded? What's the difference between these borders and in modern Israel? Or is this modern Israel? The borders. That's post-war, which is what I think people... Those are modern Israeli borders. Wait, so when people say... You're welcome for the $10 earlier and you're welcome for the 5. Thanks for the quote. Thanks, Cannon. No, I think it was the pre-war borders. I think you guys are wrong. I think when people say go back to the 48 borders, they are talking about Resolution 181. I think that is what they're talking about, right? Wait, where is Irk? If they meant after the war, why do people say 1967 borders then? Pretty sure they're just a reference to the borders that prevailed from 48 to 67, and the 48 borders you're talking about are the UN ones. Okay, so Irk, people are talking about this original... Oh wait, are they? Are people talking about the, They're talking about the pre-war borders, what they would have been, right? They're talking about what these borders would have been, correct? What the UN partition would have looked like. They are talking about pre-war borders because Israel declared statehood before post-war border. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. All right. Please look at the arable land if you want to know why Palestinians rejected. Palestine, arable land. Nice. I see. Is this arable land? No, this is just Palestinian. Oh, because green looks like farmland. The Jordan Valley makes up 30% of the West Bank and it constitutes half of its agricultural land. The 105-kilometer fertile strip of land connects the West Bank with Jordan. We appeal to the United Nations to assist the Jewish people in the building up of its state and to receive the state of Israel into the comity of nations. Comedy? Nations. We appeal in the very midst of the onslaught launched against us now for months to the Arab inhabitants of the state of Israel to preserve peace. To the onslaught launched to the Arab inhabitants of the state of Israel to preserve peace and participate in the upbuilding of the state on the basis of full and equal citizenship and due representation in all its provisional and permanent institutions. We extend our hand to all neighboring states and their peoples in an offer of peace and good neighborliness and appeal to them to establish bonds of cooperation and mutual help with the sovereign Jewish people settled on its own land. The state of Israel is prepared to do its share in a common effort for the advancement of the entire Middle East. We appeal to the Jewish people throughout the diaspora to rally around the Jew of Eretz Israel in the tasks of immigration and upbuilding and to stand by them in the great struggle for the realization of the age-old dream, the redemption of Israel. Jesus. Well, what did the, I feel like we had a sick-ass Declaration of Independence, do you think? When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and to nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Dude, our Declaration of Independence is awesome. Okay, Israel one was kind of weak, but whatever. Okay, what was I thinking? Oh, did the first drafted... well, I guess I'm curious. Did the first drafted Israeli constitution ensure equal rights for Palestinians? I'm really curious about this. First constitution of Nation of Israel. The Constituent Assembly adopted on the 16th of February 1949. Oh, shit. So maybe not, or... Because like a declaration of, because I would say that like the Israeli Declaration of Independence seems quite favorable towards, what the fuck is this? It seems quite favorable towards Palestinian people, but I mean, one could argue that the initial Declaration of Independence in the United States looked quite favorable towards women and black people, right? But clearly it wasn't. So I'm curious if like if the actual drafted laws of the initial State of Israel or Nation of Israel. Wait, why the fuck is this like this? Destiny, I'm conservative, but I don't know why you identify as left when the left largely opposes the First Amendment and Second Amendment. I don't know, bro. Some people on the left are wacky, all right? Delete. What is this bullshit? Okay, Israel, Palestine. There we go. My whole thing is that, okay, Boonsy, chill, calm down, okay? Fuck is in your dryer? I don't know. Something with zippers or buttons or something. Oh, Canute, thanks for the host. Huh. Okay, never mind. Well, why did you donut wall us at TwitchCon? Canute? You look at your DMs. Fuck you. You said, we have a few people that will be at dinner today. Do you guys want to join? And I said, sorry, dealing with dumb shit all day. I might be able to stop by and say hi. Where and when? And then you said, don't know yet, but later I will DM you. And that was the last message you sent. So fuck you. Okay? Oh, fuck, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. Exposed. And I'm glad you forgot, because if you would have DM'd me, I would have told you there's no way I could have made it anyway, so. But now I get to blame you. Okay. Ooh, okay. Israel, okay. God, I can't get over this West Asia. West Asia. Cringe. History of Israel. Okay, so we got our first thing out of the way. History of Israel covers an area of the southern Levant. Levant? I think it's Levant, right? Is it Levant? Known as Canaan, Palestine, or the Holy Land, which is the geographical location of the modern states of Israel and Palestine from a prehistory as part of the critical Levantine corridor, which witnessed waves of early humans out of Africa to the emergence of Natufian culture, 10th millennia BCE. 10th millennium BCE means 10,000 BCE, right? I think the region entered the Bronze Age, 2000 BCE, with the development of Canaanite civilization before being vassalized by Egypt in the late Bronze Age. The Iron Age, the kingdoms of Israel and Judah were established entities that were central to the origin of the Jewish and Samaritan people, as well as the Abrahamic faith tradition that's given rise to Judaism, Samaritanism, Christianity, Islam, Druzism, Bahaism, and a variety of other religious movements. Throughout the course of human history, the land of Israel has come under the sway of control of various political or polities, and as a result, it has historically hosted a wide variety of ethnic groups. In the following centuries, the Assyrian, Babylonian, and Persian empires conquered the region. The Ptolemies and the Seleucids vied for control over the region during the Hellenistic period. However, with the establishment of the Hasmonean dynasty, the local Jewish population maintained independence for a century before being incorporated into the Roman Republic. As a result of the Jewish-Roman Wars in the 1st and 2nd century CE, many Jews were killed, displaced, or sold into slavery. Following the advent of Christianity, which was adopted by the Greco-Roman world under the influence of the Roman Empire, the region's demographics shifted towards newfound Christians, who replaced Jews as the majority of the population by the 4th century. However, shortly after Islam was consolidated across the Arabian Peninsula under Muhammad, Byzantine Christian rule over the land of Israel was superseded by the Arab conquest of the Levant in the 7th century. From the 11th century to the 13th century... Uh-oh, who joined? Oh.
Hey, yeah, just wanted to ask you a quick question. So, like, has your stance on the Israel-Palestine thing changed at all yet?
Well, I mean, like, everything I read, I'm trying to, like, I had a couple subreddit posts I read recently that were pretty pro-Palestinian, but, like, all of the historical foundation, everything I read kind of, like, pushes me further and further towards the Israel thing, like, pretty clearly. Same. But, I mean, like, be careful what you read. Like, I'm still trying to do more reading and everything, but, I mean...
Yeah, like, the most morally questionable thing, obviously, was, them immigrating back into Israel in the first place and displacing Palestinians, but again, like, it seemed like good faith negotiations were trying to be had, and Palestinians just wouldn't negotiate. They just
sure. Although to be clear, that was good faith negotiations that Jewish people were trying to have after all of them moved to a land where Palestinians weren't really ready for all of them to move there, right? So of course it's quote unquote good faith, but after hundreds of thousands of Jewish people were resettled there by Europe, right?
Yeah, that was the most morally questionable thing at the time.
Sure,
but,
although I don't know if that's morally questionable, because, like, my understanding is I believe Jewish people were here. They were genuinely here before Palestinian people, but then they got, like, kicked out by the Romans, and then I think by Arab conquest. So I don't know, but I'm sure there's, like, a Palestinian response to that. Like, what is the response to Jewish people saying they were here prior to that? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing too. Like, Palestinians will say they have a claim to the land because they were there for X period of time, but, like, Jews could say that same thing too. So I don't think there's a very hard right or wrong on either side on that front. But like when I look at a lot of the issues, like in modern times, like on the West Bank, I'm starting to like kind of understand the Israeli position a little bit more because so many of these Palestinians are like insanely ridiculously racist towards Jews. Like so are the Israelis. A lot of those settlers are like, I was watching a Vice documentary where like this woman openly and unashamedly admitted she like spits at whatever Arab people she sees. But there's a different kind of like racism where Palestinians completely deny the Holocaust, think Jews should have been Holocausted, and they'll just say, if only the Holocaust actually happened. And they're the ones who are oftentimes starting shit.
Yeah,
Like
I
the
understand.
media seems
I
to.
understand what you're saying. This is the only thing that I would implore you to consider, and it's not an excuse, but it's something to keep in mind, okay? We had 9/11 in the United States, right? We had a terrorist attack. That
Yeah.
one attack was enough to make us like hate Arabs for like the next like 10 fucking years, maybe more, right? Remember, one of Donald, people forget this, but Donald Trump ran initially under a platform if he wanted to ban all Muslims from coming to the United States. So that stuck with us. And that was by one attack. You're looking at a group
Yeah.
of people that have been under constant conflict from Israel and view Israel as enjoying wide support from the West, while the West has essentially won the Cold War and toppled like how much of the Middle East. So like you can, it's not acceptable, but it's understandable
Well,
why Palestinian people would look at Jewish people as dogs that should have been wiped out in the Holocaust because fuck them and fuck the living conditions they have, et cetera, et cetera.
that
Right.
that seems to be the attitude they had before they even started settling in Palestine.
Before, well, Jewish people lived in Palestine under Ottoman rule alongside Palestinians, and I think they more or less got along. Like Palestinian Jews and Arab and Palestinian Arabs, I think lived alongside each other, more or less got along with each other now.
It seems to me from the reading I've done that Palestinians before the large Jewish migration, they were very racist, very anti-Jew, and they at that time were still having the rhetoric of denying the Holocaust.
Wait, before the Holocaust happened, or?
No, after the Holocaust happened.
Well, after the Holocaust happened, you'd already had Jews being settled there for fucking 20 years, right? So of course they probably started to fucking hate them, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because the Mandate Palestine started in like 1920 or 1921. So there had already been for decades Jewish people settling there. There'd already been a lot of back and forth violence and conflict. But I believe that under the Ottoman Empire, one of the big ways that the Ottoman Empire maintained its wide empire was by having people that lived under their borders all be fucking chill with each other. Like under the Ottoman Empire, you couldn't have all these different groups of people living in different regions fucking murdering each other. It would have like collapsed. And I think for a bit it did. I think it contracted a bit as it tried to get its shit under control. But under the Ottoman rule, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Jews and Palestinians and people in different regions tended to live okay with each other. I think. I could be wrong. That some people are saying I'm wrong and some people are saying I'm right. So maybe that's worth reading about. But
Yeah, maybe I have to read a bit more about that, but yeah, my understanding was they never really got along. And there was always this sort of hatred and more minor violence against the Jewish population. So like every time I look up these sort of major events, it always seems like the Palestinians were the ones who kind of started it first. So the idea that well, it's kind of understandable how Palestinians today are so racist against Jews and are like literally pro-Holocaust is because the same reason why Americans hated Arabs so much after 9/11. Like again, it just seems like every situation Palestinians were the ones to like start it first.
yeah, but I mean, it depends on what you mean by start it first, because from their perspective, Britain started it, or Jewish
Yeah.
people started it by settling as colonizers. So that was the start. And then from there, it's just been a continual conflict back and forth, basically.
But again, they were the ones to start the violence first. That's what I mean.
Sure. But I mean, they would consider settling a state or settling land to be a form of political violence, and then declaring an independent state would be another form of political violence. But
again, Jews were the ones who wanted to negotiate, and then they said, no, fuck you. And then they're the ones who attacked first, and then they acted like crybabies and said, oh, Jews are evil, when they were the ones who attacked first. And then
yeah, I
they
understand,
got
but it's like
that they lost.
Sure, but it's like me going into your house and taking over your garage and then saying like, let's negotiate. Like, I just want to own your garage, and then you can have the rest of your house. And then you coming in and attacking me because you're like, fuck you, get the fuck out of my garage. And then I fight back. And now let's say I capture like your garage in your basement. And I'm like, okay, well, let's make a deal about like the garage in the basement. And you're like, well, no, fuck you, you're in my house still. And then we fight again, and now I take over your living room. Like, it seems like I'm only up to 1950, but it kind of seems like the history of this region is the Jewish people get there, they get a foothold there, and then negotiations go back and forth. The Palestinians say no. The Israelis say, okay, fine, let's fight. They take more territory. Then Israel is like, do you want to chill now? And they're like, I didn't hear no fucking bell. And then they fight more, then they lose more. Yeah. And that just seems to be the history of the region over and over again. And now they're basically saying like, okay, listen, let's go all the way back to 48 and let's go back to the original UN resolution. I want those borders. I fucked up. I'm sorry. Like, just go back to living in my garage. It's kind of what it seems like it's going on. But
no. I would say your average Palestinian, the river to the sea bullshit rhetoric. That's what they want. They don't.
I don't know if that's the average Palestinian. It's hard to tell right now. I think that's just foreign. Also, I would be careful. If you've got like a Palestinian refugee, they probably don't know fuck all about any of this. I wouldn't trust anybody that calls themselves a Palestinian refugee because these guys might be like third generation Brits or Americans, unless they've actually done reading or research here. Like, I wouldn't trust a single fucking thing they have to say. And same thing with like the young people protesting at colleges and shit. These people don't know fucking anything about the region or the conflict. Just because you've got like some bloodline or some ethnic tie to the land doesn't mean you know dick all about it. I know plenty of real life people with Palestinian descent that couldn't find Palestine on a fucking map. Okay, unironically. Yeah. So yeah, but I'm just saying. So like, I wouldn't put a bunch of stock into like the college kids that are protesting right now. That like every Palestinian wants to wipe. Israel
I'm not
off
talking about that.
Sure,
I'm not talking about the college kids. I'm like, again, I've tried to find as much evidence as I could. I've looked at like Pew Research data. I've looked at like news reports, Al Jazeera, like all these pro-Palestinian kind of sources. It looks like to me that your average Palestinian believes in that from the river to the sea bullcrap, and it seems to be more prevalent in the younger generations, and that may have been because of the of Hamas, like them radicalizing children.
Wait, so I'm curious, where can I find this? So if I was to Google like polling data, Palestine, existence of Israel or something, like what would I?
Yeah, I would just look at some of the Pew Research stats. The latest I could find was from around 08, 09. That wasn't about whether or not it wasn't about the two-state solution. It was about Hamas support. But yeah, I'd look at the Israel polling data. I'd look at Palestinian sort of news sources like Al Jazeera.
Melman, do Palestinians support Hamas? Polls paint a murky picture. Well, I'm curious if you can link me or show me like where are polls with.
Let me see if I can quickly find it. So it's fairly easy to actually find. It's easy to find data across surrounding regions, so like Jordan, Egypt, areas like that. Not quite as easy. Where should I post this, by the way?
Just DM it to me.
Okay, sure. Message.
Oh, thank you, Eric. Hold on.
So that was the last. That was the latest Pew Research poll I could find on support of Hamas. If you look at surrounding regions, it is very high. Since Hamas controls so much of the media there, I would assume they do enjoy a lot of support within Gaza. And again, if you look at if you look at a lot of the news reports, if you look at like street interviews and stuff, I'm getting the feeling that the younger generation has been more radicalized than the older generation.
Sure, that's probably
So when-
always going to be true kind of for young people. I'm looking at a foreign affairs article. This is from 2023, the Arab Barometer Wave 8 in Gaza. I guess these are some kind of Arab pollsters for how much trust you have in the Hamas-led government. I'm seeing about 23% say not a lot, and like 45% say none at all. So it seems like the opinions of Hamas are not that good. Yeah.
That doesn't exactly answer the question of whether or not they support their policies. It's specifically about whether or not they actually trust the government, like whether or not they can be trusted to enact said policies, whether or not the way in which they go about supporting said policies is good. Wait, what was the source?
Here, it's a foreign affairs article that's linking data
Okay.
from the Arab Barometer Wave 8. I just like that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because this
I'll-
peer research is 14 years old, and this region
Yeah.
changes pretty quickly, so...
Yeah. All right, well, I'll look at that. Thanks for sending me it.
Okay.
Okay, well, take care.
Be careful. Bye.
I'll look into that more.
Have fun. Why doesn't VG just link his shit? Every time you ask for a source, he seems to have old, outdated, relevant shit. Yeah, I don't want to make an accusation, I'm not sure, but it sounds like... I think he does his own research, but sometimes it feels like he gets his research from someone else, or he hears it in a video, and then he doesn't have the original source now. That's why usually when he comes, I'm like, give me the source, let me see the source, so I can like read it and evaluate what's being said, yeah. Or maybe he just doesn't save his links, I don't know. Honestly believe what you should obtain is a concrete example, a microcosm showing how Jewish-Palestinian coexistence broke down, besides just seeing it through broad trends. A great case of this is the documentary Jaffa, the Orange's Clockwork, which is probably one of the best documentaries I've seen, highly recommended. Focuses on the orange cultivation sector, but understanding the case gives you a really valuable lens that describes things generally. Jaffa, the Orange's Clockwork. Can I find this on... Is this going to be on YouTube? Full movie HD. Hello? What's up? Who joined?
I don't know who this other guy is.
Oh, what do you want?
How much research have you done on Zionism?
What do you mean on Zionism?
The Zionist project predates World War II in 1948. You cannot contextualize anything you're reading right now when it comes to the Jewish population and the immigrants if you don't understand the architect and the founder of Zionism. You have to.
Okay. What do you want me to understand?
The entire project, the goal, the reason the immigrants are coming there. When you're talking about, well, Palestinians didn't accept this deal, didn't accept that deal, you have to understand where the Jews settling in the nation are, what they're looking to do. If that group's
my understanding is what they're
policy
looking to
and
do is
their
they're
goal
looking to have
expansion.
they're looking to have a nation state, you know, to safeguard the Jewish people.
And to expand further and further into the land. So the fact that they gave them an advantage in one of those offerings
Wait,
that was controlled by 80% of the Palestinians.
I don't think any part of Israel history shows them necessarily like looking to aggressively expand over and over again.
Absolutely.
Which part?
You need to research that first. You have to research it. You have to understand everything they wanted to do.
Wait, well,
This
what
predates
like,
it. You got to look
what-
up the... Hold on. I'll tell you the dude's name.
Are you talking about the Balfour Declaration from 1917?
Hold on.
Because I'm pretty sure that declaration was literally like 30 words, and we read everything around that. I don't think there was anything relating to that or surrounding that or drives for Zionism from Zionist groups.
I sent you fucking DM yesterday with all the shit you need to look up.
Well, bro, I haven't even finished reading this. I'm just like getting my footing.
Well,
here.
I'm telling you now that you're getting your footing here, but remember then, if you don't do it now, you're going to have to go back and recontextualize after you look up the Zionist stuff.
Tell me, can you just tell me what I'm missing, or?
No, because I'm not good enough to speak at long form on it.
Wait,
but
then
you
how
need
do
to
you
look
know
up
I
Theodore
haven't?
Herzl.
Wait, how do you know?
Because,
wait,
because I
hold on,
understand it on
To
a
be clear,
10,000 foot
wait.
view.
No. There is no. When you say go look up one guy, This is like Nazi talking points. This doesn't mean anything. I'm
No,
looking for
it-
broad
it's not-
movements.
okay,
I'm looking
hold on,
for
chill.
yeah.
All
No,
right.
I'm just saying that like you need to look up Theodore blah blah blah. That doesn't tell me anything, especially if you don't know anything about him. Like what am I missing, or
You
what
need to
part of
look
the
up Zionism. You need to look up the Zionist movement. You need to read about the history of the Zionist movement.
I know
That was a very explicit
sure,
thing.
I know a little bit of the history of the Zionist movement in regards to finally getting that Balfour Declaration basically signed off on by Great Britain and all of the different work internationally and all the different groups that were involved in getting that. Do I need to look up pre-Balfour Declaration? Like, why does that matter? I'm just looking at what did nations support? What did mandate Palestine and the British mandate for Palestine and the moving of Israel and everything there? Like, what did that look like? What am I missing? What context am I missing from that?
All those people settling aren't there just to take over whatever land they can be given. First of all, you have to contend with whether or not that land should be given, because again, it was under British control. It was Ottoman land. Under British control, they're allowing Jewish settlers to come in droves and take over that land. The deals they're offering are giving a lot of favorable, significant portions of that land to Jewish settlers over Palestinians. And 3, they don't plan to just keep the land they have. They plan to expand and take over all of what is now Israel, Gaza, West Bank.
Okay,
that is the goal.
Can you show me?
That was the goal.
Where can I find this stated somewhere?
I will get it for you. I'm downstairs walking my dog.
Okay, because it seems to me like the only way that Israel has gotten more land is when other people have tried to invade them first.
I got some good info on that too, so I'll get
Okay.
that for you.
All right, let me know. Be careful.
All right, bye.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, what's up?
Just a quick question. I just tuned in, and I hope you don't think this is a stupid question, but I'm watching you do your research, and I really appreciate like the way you do it. So, like I said, I hope you don't think it's a stupid question. What program is that you're using to like organize your notes and your article? I see it says like articles, Ben Shapiro material.
Oh, it's just called Obsidian.
Obsidian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it. Because I I have I use like Google Word, and
Google Word is
like,
good
the Word
too.
doc.
I like Obsidian because you can like download it to a bunch of different devices, and like if you pay a monthly fee or something, you can like auto sync it through everything, and it's just convenient. But
Yeah. No, it looks pretty cool the way that you can organize things and put little tabs to the left. All
Sure.
right, that's it.
Have fun.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys, what's going on with Lycan? What did I miss something while I was out of town? Holy shit, what's happening? Jesus. Okay. All right, stop. Okay. It's probably a good article just to have, I think. I should organize my articles differently. Or find ways to tag them, maybe? Okay, stop spamming in my chat. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. We're probably not going to read this tonight, but I want to know the next conflict after the 1948 Palestine War. Oh, here, we'll just read this part just to make Lycan happy. Between 1882 and 1903, approximately 35,000 Jews moved to Palestine, known as the First Aliyah. In the Russian Empire, Jews faced growing persecution and legal restrictions. Half the world's Jews lived in the Russian Empire, where they were restricted to living in the Pale of Settlement. Severe pogroms in the early 1880s and legal repression led to 2 million Jews emigrating from the Russian Empire. 1.5 million went to the United States. Popular destinations were also Germany, France, England, Holland, Argentina, and Palestine. Oh, do you think this is where David Pakman's parents come from, or grandparents? Russian Jews established the Bilu and Hovevi Zion, lovers of Zion movements, with the aim of settling in Palestine. In 1878, Russian Jewish immigrants established the village of Pita Tikva, followed by Rishon LeZion. In a... You can put a equal underneath the section to make them collapsible. It's sometimes helpful underneath the title of a section. Wait, what? Like that? You fucking liar. Wait, I think these are already collapsible. Fuck you. Irk. Oh, link here. $5 to rent. Really good. Oh, can I rent this on like Amazon or YouTube? How does Vimeo have a fucking rental platform? The existing Ashkenazi Jewish communities were concentrated in the 4 holy cities, extremely poor and relied on donations, halukah, from groups abroad, while the new settlements were small farming communities, but still relied on funding from the French Baron Edmund James de Rothschild. No, but I can send you a free version if you're reticent. No, it's all good. I'll do something. Who sought to establish profitable enterprises. Many early migrants could not find work and left, but despite the problems, many settlements arose and the community grew. After the Ottoman conquest of Yemen in 1881, a large number of Yemenite Jews also emigrated to Palestine, often driven by Messianism. What does this mean? Messianism is the belief in the advent of the Messiah who acts as the savior of a group of people. Messianism originated as Zoroastrianism, religious belief, and followed to Abrahamic religions. But other religions have Messianism-related concepts. Religions Messiah concepts include Judaism. Jesus. In Judaism, the Messiah will be a future king from the line of David and redeemer of the Jewish people and humanity. Is the line of David still alive? Is there like a person here? King David. And Judaism is based on text in the Hebrew Bible. According to the Bible, blah, 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 Judaism. Is this line still alive? Where are my Jewish people in chat? Do I have any of you David descendants here? Is David even a real person? The Israeli King David? Or is this just like a Bible guy? I don't know. It's Deepak. The Rothschilds. There isn't a known line, but David is a historical figure. Yes, he lives in Chicago. The Ethiopian king claims ancestry. Interesting. Okay. I know Lycan didn't just link me like a 300-page paper, did he? Let's see. Oh, 15 pages. Zionism and Imperialism, The Historical Origins by Abdul Wahab Kayali. Oh boy. Can somebody link me this paper? Always good to be reminded how little Destiny knows about Jewish stuff. Yeah, because you Jews don't even give a fuck about your religion, okay? Half you Orthodox Jews just spend your whole lives trying to convert, like, less faithful Jewish people back to the fucking religion anyway, okay? Fuck you guys. It's not my fault you guys suck at your religion, okay? I know what all the Muslims think because they're militantly shoving it down my throat on Twitter all day, okay? And I know what Christians think because Christians fucking run the United States. I don't know what Jewish people think. I don't know what any of you fuckers do, okay? You guys get educated, do investment banking, and then you live in expensive houses. Fuck you. And you run Hollywood. I see what you guys are doing out there. Oh no, page not found. Irk, what are you doing? Oh, you got it. Lameo, every Hasid I meet always tries to get me to go to temple with them when I tell them I'm an atheist now. Yeah, I think, I could be wrong, don't quote me on this, but I think Jews aren't allowed to proselytize to non-Jews. But like, I think your goal is to, isn't your goal to like bring other Jews back into the faith more? So like, if you run into another Jew and he's not going to fucking temple or Sabbath or whatever bullshit, your goal is to like get him to start going again or some shit. I think that's like what they obsess over. I could be wrong because I don't know fuck all about the religion of Judaism. You guys learn Hebrew for your shit. It's weird. All right. All right. What did Lycan read us or link us? Zionism as a modern political creed arose as a reaction to three interacting challenges or problems facing Europe in the 19th century, the heyday of Western imperialism. Oh boy. The first of these was the growth and expansion of European imperialism, which necessitated... Oh, dude, my brain is actually poisoned from Twitter. As soon as I start reading like imperialism, Western colonial, I just like my brain shuts off. Okay. Fair and balanced. Let's read this. Sorry. Jesus. Should I read up this guy's background? No, because I'm just poisoning the well. I know that's what I'm doing. I'm just poisoning the well. Okay. The first of these was the growth and expansion of European imperialism, which necessitated the search for new sources of raw materials and markets for the finished products, in addition to securing the lines of commercial and military communication. The importance of the Arab lands as the gateway to Africa and the bridge to Asia was made evident by Napoleon's campaign in 1797 to 1799. Interesting. Yet the dangers of an independent state comprising Egypt and other parts of the Arab world set up by Muhammad Ali became clear soon after. Thus, the need for stifling any nascent, I think. Independent state, doubly threatening to imperialism later on in the wake of the spread of Arab nationalist sentiment, became increasingly persistent as the Ottoman Empire, the sick man of Europe, drifted further towards disintegration. Nascent. Amazing me, nascent. Secondly, the failure of European liberalism and the ideas of equality and democracy to incorporate and assimilate the Jew were combined with the capitalist... Is this guy like a Marxist-Leninist? What is this guy? Holy shit. This paper. Wait, what does this guy do? I'm so curious. Department of Political Science. It's Hassan's alt. Okay. This paper was written in 1977. That's not the guy. Oh, this paper was written in 1977? Oh, okay. Oh, it was written in 1977. Okay. Zionism and Imperialism, the Historical Origins. Okay. Well. And assimilate the Jew were combined with the capitalist crisis in Eastern Europe that followed in the wake of the adoption of industrialization with the consequent loss of vocation for a great number of Jews who could not easily adjust to the transformation of the feudal economic system. It is important to note that this separation of the Jews from their environments encouraged a Jewish apartness, which was in the past a contributory factor to the phenomenon of anti-Jewishness. So Jewish people couldn't industrialize? They were stuck on their farms and their kibbutzes? Thirdly, the spread of aggressive and chauvinist nationalism in Europe stressed racial qualities and the racial basis of the nation state, as well as racial superiority and the need for expansionism. Lebensraum, which was diverted to overseas colonies and possessions. Superiority, exploitation, and domination were upheld as a civilizational mission under the notion of the white man's burden. These ideas and notions played a crucial role in the ideological formulation of Zionism, as well as a guiding light for its founders. These challenges were known as the Eastern Question, or the Syrian Question, and the Jewish Question. We shall see that it was the first question which prompted the major imperialist figures to propose the idea of creating a client Jewish settler state in Palestine, primarily designed to block the fulfillment of unity and independence in that important area of the world, and to serve the interests of the imperialist sponsors and protectors of that state. The events of the latter part of the century were conducive to the creation of what amounted to a consensus of opinion among the imperialist and Western politicians, with the cooperation of Western Jewish capital and anti-Semites everywhere in favor of Zionism and the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. I'll give this like 2 more pages. Okay. Towards the end of the 18th century, the Western powers' interest in the Arab area intensified as the aging Ottoman Empire became increasingly dependent on the European powers, which obtained privileges, footholds, and spheres of influence of the empire itself. These powers sought to establish direct links with the various populations and religious sects in the area. Thus, eventually, France was to become the protector of the Catholic communities in Syria. Which part of the paper do you disagree with? I guess one is, I don't know what I'm actually reading here. Or I don't know what, I guess I don't know as much for economics. I know what to expect for sourcing. I don't know what as much to expect for sourcing in historical papers. There's a lot of pretty strong claims that are being laid out here. Are these just taken for granted by scholars? These are just actually so obviously true that they don't even bother sourcing them? Or is this... So, for instance, this part of the paper here says, the reasons for Zionism all very conveniently play into kind of this Marxist lens that, the reason why Zionism exists is because of European imperialism and the search for raw materials and markets to sell goods to, the importance of controlling land, the failure of liberalism and the ideas of equality and democracy, and the spread of aggressive European nationalism. I don't know. I would be interested in seeing if any of this is true. My understanding is that when we read so much about that the Balfour Declaration, Jesus Christ, and it seemed like there was a genuine fervor for Jewish people around the world in the wake of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, especially, that they really wanted to establish a state for themselves somewhere. And it doesn't feel like the West was a hardcore supporter of Israel in that endeavor. I would be really curious, I need some facts to support that. So, for instance, what we just read about the Israel Declaration of Independence, why didn't the United States or the West, why didn't they support them in their fight against the other Arab nations? Or why was Britain constantly trying to limit the amount of Jewish settlers to appease the Arab population when it was Mandate Palestine, right? Those are two actions, and I barely know anything about this history right now. So far, I would say barely. I've read a Wikipedia article, right? But those are two actions that fly in the face of the idea that Britain was desperately trying to set up the country of Israel. So I'm curious but here, this obviously claims completely opposite, but there's not a single source, there's not a footnote or anything in here for me to read. Yes, I don't know. It just seems like a trash paper. But I don't know. I mean, who knows? I could be wrong. This guy's probably got a PhD. Who the fuck am I? It's during his Palestine campaign, 1799, that Napoleon, motivated by his war needs and later on by his ambition to attract the loyal... Oh, and then also, this thing here. Is it really true? Because we read that there were pogroms and stuff in pre-Stalinist Russia, pre-Soviet Russia or I think it would just be pre-Stalinist Russia, that the Russian Empire was a hostile place for Jewish people. And that was a big push factor. Whereas in this paper, it sounds like he's basically just saying Jewish people were too retarded to keep up with technology. Am I reading that wrong? The failure of European liberalism and the ideas of equality and democracy to incorporate and assimilate the Jew, were combined with the capitalist crisis in Eastern Europe that followed in the wake of the adoption of industrialization, with the consequent loss of vocation for a great number of Jews who could not easily adjust to the transformation of the feudal economic system. Is that true? I've never heard that in my entire life, that Jewish people had a difficulty adopting to industrialization. And now, I don't know anything. Maybe that is the case of that, but that's the first time I've ever heard a claim like this ever put forth in my entire life. I've never in my life heard this claim put forth that Jews just have a really hard time adapting to yeah, that's an insane statement. Well, I shouldn't say that it's insane because my historical knowledge is limited. I've never heard this in my entire life though. But yeah. And then I'm also racist because of the guy's name too. But yeah, anyway, I'm sorry. But I'll give it a few more pages. We'll see if yeah. Towards the end of the 18th century, the Western powers' interest in the Arab area intensified. We read this. Thus, eventually, France was to become the protector of the Catholic communities in Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine, while the Orthodox Christians came under Russian protection. It was during his Palestinian campaign in 1799 that Napoleon, motivated by his war needs and later on by his ambition to attract the loyalty of the Jews as agents throughout the world, issued his call for the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem and the return of the Jews to Palestine for political purposes. This campaign itself aroused British interest in Palestine as it posed a threat to the British overland route to India. When Muhammad Ali of Egypt embarked on his ambitious plan to modernize Egypt and build a strong independent state comprising Egypt, Greater Syria, and the Arab Peninsula. During the first decades of the 19th century, the British government adopted... Can somebody tell me what this is published into? I'm very curious. Or is it really this common that there are no footnotes in historical papers that are published in peer-reviewed journals? The British government adopted a course of direct military intervention. It was instrumental in driving the armies of Ibrahim Pasha back to Egypt. Muhammad Ali's advance into Syria opened the Syrian question. New British policies were formed as a result. One of the keys to the new approach was Palestine, the Jews a prominent part of its spearhead. In 1838, it's published in this, the Journal of Palestine Studies. Gotcha. Okay. In 1838, the British decided to station a British consular agent in Jerusalem, and the following year opened the first European consulate in that city. During the 1840s and 1850s, the British government, which had no protégés of its own, established a connection with the Jews in Palestine, around 9,700 in all, the Druze in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. Behind the protection of trade and religious minorities, there lay the major political and strategic interests of the powers. During the 1840s and 50s, the British government had no protégé. Oh, he does cite some things down here. Finally, Jesus. From its start, British presence in Palestine. Oh, he has a footnote for this claim here. Albert Hourani, Ottoman Reform and the Politics of Notables, and Beginnings of Modernization of the Middle East in the 19th Century. Do you think do you think this book is published somewhere? I'm actually so curious if the footnotes... Here's like a dirty little secret. In low impact papers, if you read, if you actually go and follow the sources for their footnotes, it is not always the case that the original source backs up the summary statement that some, even PhD level writers will put in their papers. Not to say that's not the case here, but I'm so curious if I could find this book. If somebody could find this book, I would love you for a long time. And the citation is to a 27-page range. That was one of the things that set me off. Yeah, I see that's 41 to 68. Like, what I'd be curious about here is, did the British government establish a connection specifically with the Jews in Palestine, or did they establish a connection with all of the people in Palestine, including the Jewish people? Or was it actually specifically just to the... I'm curious about this fact. I'm really, really, really curious. So basically what David Irving did, this is exactly what David Irving did. Yeah. But anyway, from its start, British presence in Palestine was associated with the promotion of Jewish interests. This question of British protection of Jews became, however, and remained for many years, the principal concern of the British consulate of Jerusalem. Albert Hampson, the British consul in Jerusalem, in relation to the Jews of Palestine, 1838 to 1914, part 1, and then a page number, I think. Destiny, majored in history and uni history papers, must cite sources. Hourani is a good source, super dry. Okay. Why does it sound like I have a Tesla coil in? Oh, because I love Tesla. The formulation framework of British imperial policy in the area was best drawn out by its architect, Foreign Secretary Viscount Palmerston, in a letter to the British ambassador at Constantinople explaining why the Ottoman Sultan should encourage Jewish immigration to Palestine. Palmerston wrote, "The Jewish people, if returning under the sanction and protection and the invitation of the Sultan, would be a check upon any future evil designs of Muhammad Ali or his successor. It is remarkable indeed that Palmerston used the term Jewish people in reference to a racial religious unity, as there were no other bonds between the Jews at a time when even prominent Jews were speaking of Jewish communities and when the Jewish assimilationist movement... Also noteworthy was the use of the word returning, as if history stood still for 2,000 years, and the adoption of religious memories as a title deed with utter disregard, nay, in studied direct opposition to the will of the inhabitants of the land. All this preceded the conversion of the father of Zionism to Zionism and the official birth of the movement by more than half a century. Nor was Palmerston's concept a bolt in the sky British imperial policy, this particular idea of erecting a human barrier colonial Jewish settler state in Palestine to serve imperial interests under the cover of a variety of moral pretensions was shared and upheld by a number of prominent British imperialist prime ministers. Okay, I think I'm done with this. Many of the patrons of Zionism were not philo-Semites, as is sometimes assumed. Balfour's pro-Zionist stance was initiated by Herzl's arguments for a British royal commission on the immigration of Jews to Britain, that diverting the Jews to Palestine was the solution to that British problem. Lawrence Oliphant provides a very clear-cut case of the contradiction between the moral and... Is there like an impact? Has this page been like cited by anybody? Does anybody know? Is there like a way to look that up? If you Google around, you can find that article everywhere, but nothing about the author. Yeah, I'm curious. Oh boy. And then Lycan linked me a video. I linked the paper he cited that you asked for. Just Brandon. Wait, can you link again? Okay, he cited pages 41 to 68 in this paper. Oh, he cited the entire paper. His 41 to 68. Based. Absolute Giga Chad. Beginnings of modernization in the Middle East, the 19th century. Fuck it, let's go for a little bit. It is a commonplace that we cut up history into periods at our peril. The artificial frontiers made for convenience may seem to be real, and a new generation of historians will have to spend time removing them. Nevertheless, to think we must distinguish, and the best we can do is try to make divisions which reveal something important about the process we are studying. The old division of history in terms of states and dynasties was not without its value. The imposition, for example, of Ottoman rule on the western part of the Muslim world was an event of great importance, however we look at it, but it is too simple and therefore misleading to go beyond that and make a further distinction simply in terms of the strength or weakness of Ottoman rule. The traditional division of a period of Ottoman greatness followed by one of Ottoman decline does not help us much to find out what really happened. Perhaps it would be more satisfactory to begin by making a distinction in terms of the kind of sources which we as historians must use. This might have a significance beyond itself, both because the sources we use to help determine the emphasis we place within the complex whole of the historical process, and because the appearance of a new and important type of source, or the disappearance of an old one, may reveal a change in the social order or intellectual life. Okay, I don't know if I want to read this whole thing right now, because it would probably take me about 30 minutes. Can people look, can you guys look through this and see if you can find anything about Britain specifically setting up like embassies or emirates here just to confer with Jewish people? And give me the page. I'm curious. Oh wait, did you say he cited a particular page? Did I miss that? Fuck me. It says pages 41 to 68. It doesn't say a particular page. He just cites the entire paper. But I'm curious if there's a part in this paper that supports that. It could be. I'm just curious. By the early 19th, the ambassadors and consuls of the major powers were not just repeating information picked up haphazard and from a distance. The growing weight of European interest in the Near East made it necessary for the governments of Europe to be fully and precisely informed, while the desire of the Ottoman government and the dependent governments in Egypt and Tunisia to maintain their independence and perform their methods obliged them and their local governors to take the representatives of the European states at least partly into their confidence. This process of change took place this period by the large population. Sources sanctioned the Muslim Jewish chronicles. Page 26, 29. Oh, page 26 out of 29. Thus far, we've talked in terms of two factors, the government and the urban notables acting as a focus for local forces and able either to oppose the government or else oblige it to act through them. Fuck. I wonder what year we're at right now, or what. I don't know, I'm sure. But there was a third factor involved, the European embassies and consulates, particularly those of England, France, and Russia. Their influence was changing in scope and nature. Since the early 17th century, the European states had had interests of their own to preserve, and had done so by allying themselves with one or other party in the palace, the imperial divan, or the provincial divans. But in the 19th century, a new situation came into existence. Their power and interests were now so great that they were no longer willing simply to act through whatever government existed, or in other words, to allow the Ottoman central or local governments to provide the framework within which the activities of Europe should be conducted. They were now in a position to put pressure on the governments to become the kind of governments they needed. In particular, they were not willing to deal with the various populations of the empire throughout the government. European trade with the empire, in particular the textile trade, was growing quickly, and this meant not only that the European merchants should be protected, but that those involved in the trade with Europe, whether foreigners or Ottomans, should be able to deal directly with the population, to travel freely, not to bear vexatious burdens and impositions, to widen the markets for imports, to collect materials for exports, to tell producers what to produce, and lend them the money to do it. At the same time, for various reasons, different groups in the population wanted the protection of the European powers who were willing to give it to them. Rich and prominent individuals could be protected by attaching them in some way to the consulates and embassies. During the 1830s, something new happened. For the first time, Ottoman subjects were themselves made consular agents, but beyond that, whole communities were taken under protection. A policy which had been pursued by the French since the 17th and the Russians since the late 18th century was pursued by them, and others more consciously and deliberately in the 1840s and 50s. It was then that the British government, which had no obvious protégés of its own, established a connection with the Jews in Palestine, some of the Druses in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. Behind the protection of trade and religious minorities, there lay something else, the major political and strategic interests of the powers, and these also might make necessary a direct connection with the peoples of the empire. British communications with India must be kept open, and for this purpose, British consuls must have direct and friendly relations with the chiefs of Bedouin tribes, which lay across the routes. In their own interest, therefore, the European powers needed a certain kind of Ottoman government and a certain position for themselves inside the empire. To obtain this, they were prepared to put pressure on the government, and they were able to do so both because of their military strength and because of their connections to different groups of the empire. The Ottoman government, for its part, needed them. Only the armies of one European power could protect from the threats of another. In addition, political groups inside the government looked more than before to the support of European embassies and consulates in their struggles with other groups. This, in turn, strengthened the positions of the ambassadors and consulates even further. Okay, so this is about, basically, this is about Great Britain reaching out to particular peoples within the Ottoman Empire in order to strengthen collections, which did include Jewish people in Palestine, some of the Druses in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. Okay, so different groups in Lebanon. Okay. Hold on, what was my... His summary of that footnote is, Muhammad Ali's advance into Syria opened the Syrian question. New British policies were formulated as a result. One of the keys to the new approach was Palestine, the Jews a prominent part of its spearhead. In 1838, the British decided to station a British consular agent in Jerusalem, and in the following year opened the first European consulate in that city. During the 1840s and 50s, the British government, which had no protégés of its own, established a connection with the Jews in Palestine, around 9,700 in all, the Jews in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. Behind the protection of trade and religious minorities, there lay the major political... This is not a fair summary, right? So the paper that he was citing was basically saying that for the purposes... Also, he also steals this quote, and he doesn't quote it, which is also kind of weird. It might be a different, like... Maybe there's a different in schools or in colleges. Maybe you're allowed to, like, take quotes or whatever. But in my high school class, I would get a fail for this. In the 1840s and 50s, it was then that the British government, which had no obvious protégés of its own, established a connection with the Jews in Palestine, some of the Druses in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. It's just interesting that he doesn't quote that. He quotes later on behind here, but maybe it's just a typo or whatever. It's not a direct quote, he paraphrased it. First of all, number one, paraphrasing is absolutely plagiarism, and number two, it is a direct quote. It's literally a direct quote, except he adds this around 9,700 in all, but... It's not uncommon to directly quote like that in long-form papers. Yeah, no. I'm not saying there's a problem with quoting things, but he doesn't quote this. This is passed off as his own writing here. Unless I don't know how to read this particular paper, it looks to me as though he's passing this off as his own writing, and then the quote is down here. He quotes this section and he puts the footnote, but this entire section is actually quoted from the paper that we just read. But, I mean, regardless. Okay, hold on. Like and linked us a video, though. A 1 minute and 19-second video. Oh, boy.
I also antagonized a lot of people by recognizing the state of Israel as soon as it was formed. Well, I had been to Potsdam.
Wait, former President Truman discusses the recognition of Israel.
I also antagonized a lot of people by recognizing the state of Israel as soon as it was formed. Well, I had been to Potsdam, and I'd seen some of the places where the Jews had been slaughtered by the Nazis. 6 million Jews were killed outright, men, women, and children, by the Nazis. And it was my hope that they would have a homeland where they could operate. So when the time came for that, we set up the Israeli government in Palestine, moved some of the Arabs out, and they were not moved out and thrown out. They were compensated for the land that they had to give up. The Jews organized a government over there, and it's been a successful one ever since. They've done things over there that never have been done in that part of the world before. And now, while it's a small republic, it's an energetic one. Not long ago, they had a fuss with Egypt. And if they hadn't been interfered with by the then President of the United States, Nasser would have been down.
You got like 1 minute. What? Hold on, because I got to leave the stream soon. What's up?
Yeah, sure. I read that article you sent me. It looks like about 54% of Palestinians support a two-state solution. And Hamas only has about 30% support. And I think 32% support the Fatah government.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think going forward, eliminating Hamas is absolutely a good idea. It seems like Hamas is definitely oppressing the people of Gaza. So, if I ever were to debate that topic, like with Jank, yeah, I think it's an extremely reasonable belief to say that Hamas is the oppressor of Gaza, not Israel.
Okay.
Yeah, they're supporting a two-state solution for the most part, and are supporting the Fatah government. So,
Okay. Gotcha.
all right,
All right. Love you, buddy.
all right, take care.
Bye. Bro, Lycan is getting radicalized. He's sending me stuff like my mom does. What is this? He's sending me like pictures of stuff. What is happening?
In the Sudan, where he belongs.
Okay, so we got our 1 minute and 20-second video clip. He linked me text concerning Zionism, the Jewish state. And then he sent me this picture. The Jewish company is partly modeled on the lines of a great land acquisition company. It might be called a Jewish chartered company, though it cannot exercise sovereign power and has other than purely colonial tasks. The Jewish company will be founded as a joint stock company subject to English jurisdiction, framed according to English laws and under the protection of England. Its principal center will be London. I cannot yet tell you how large the company's capital should be. I shall leave that calculation to our numerous financiers. But to avoid ambiguity, I shall put it at 1,000 million marks. It may be either more or less than that sum. The form of subscription, which will be further elucidated, will determine what fraction of the whole amount must be paid at once. What is this website? The Jewish company. Don't look at chapter 2, the Jewish question. Who even wrote this? Or who was this by? Oh, by Theodor Herzl. Okay. He wasn't the main dude behind the Balfour Declaration, right? I'm trying to... Fuck, it was a long time. That was so much shit we read for that. Was he? Father of modern political Zionism. Oh, he died in 1904. Loser. Finished the Truman video? That was it. It was 1 minute and 20 seconds. Look at the date. Oh, this is from 1896. The company will sell building sites at reasonable rates to its officials and will allow them to mortgage these for the buildings of their homes. The 7-hour day is the regular working day. This does not imply that woodcutting, digging, stone breaking, and 100 other daily tasks should only be performed during 7 hours. Indeed not. There will be 14 hours of labor, work being done in shifts of 3.5 hours. The organization of all this will be military in character. What was Lycan trying to prove with that video? I'm about to make mean assumptions, okay? But it sounds like Lycan has been told that there is a context that explains kind of like this large imperialist Western movement that has always sought to establish or reestablish the nation of Israel with Jewish people and have them slowly conquer the Middle East, I think is what he's trying to prove, or is the argument that he's making. And then the Truman video was part of that, I guess. Why don't you see what someone that knows what he's talking about has to say? See the interview of Pierce with Mossab Hassan Youssef. Okay. There are original members of Zionism that did want full expansion of Palestine. I mean, I'm sure there are. It's been a while, but my understanding is when you talk about like original Zionism or Zionism pre-Balfour Declaration, there were like far more extremist sects of Zionism. However, if I remember correctly, like the Balfour Declaration and Zionist Jews did not originally have the support of the West, which seems to run contrary to what Lycan and whoever's around him is claiming. Because like I thought that the Balfour Declaration, I thought that guy had to run around and try to convince so many motherfuckers in Europe. They had to try to get like all these other European Zionists together. They had to convince people, I think, in the US. It was a lot of work in Great Britain. They had like lobbyists. They were running all these politicians. I thought that it was quite a bit of work that this guy, I think it was like one dude that did a fuck ton of work and trying to convince a ton of people in Great Britain to like back the Zionist project. And when that Balfour Declaration finally came out, the Balfour Declaration is like the weakest thing in the world. Isn't this like...
Steven.
What?
Don't do that shit. Like, one of the reasons I'm pretty private about my shit like that is because I knew that fucking chat was going to do it. And the day they found out, they're like, this is where Lycan's getting his opinions from. Don't do that. It's very condescending. And it makes it sound like I didn't do a single lick of things on my own end where I look things up and I...
I'm sorry, hold on, wait. Yeah, to be clear, I'm not basing this on chat or anything. The only basis on is that if I get like 1-minute videos and then links to like massive things, I'm always like hesitant if the person is like going through it themselves. That's like always makes me sketchy.
Yeah. No, and don't get me wrong. Like I'll totally say it. Learning shit from other people, 1000%. But still do my own research, as they say.
Okay, so wait. So then, walk me through this for what I'm missing here. Okay, so My understanding is that prior to 1917, prior to this Balfour Declaration, which was pretty weak, I think, right? It's not a very strong commitment to anything. That there was a lot of work that went into convincing like British leaders to even publish this and even to support this particular thing.
America did a lot of pressure, and that's what the point of that clip was. You made a comment about no one putting any pressure on Britain to create that state.
Hold up. Wait. That clip from Truman, that had to do with administering to the mandated Palestinian territory. I don't think that had to do with prior to like the Balfour Declaration. I'm pretty sure.
That's what it was, and that's what you were saying. You're like, I don't think the establishment of Israel by Britain was with Western pressure.
Okay, so I feel like the establishment of Israel, I could be wrong, and I'm welcome to being wrong, but I don't think the United States gave a fuck about the establishing of Israel. I don't think we cared at all.
I mean, that from the horse's mouth of Truman there. It was like, yeah, we saw that, and it was like, fuck this. We are going to give them their country. We think they deserve this.
That's great that Truman said that, but we didn't. This was British mandated territory. It was British troops. It was British declarations. It was British white papers.
Now, again, I'll say I haven't seen other than Truman making this commentary, which seemed to align with things that people in your subreddit in the thread shitting on me were saying, which was that there was a ton of pressure on Britain to create this from the United States. So unless that's all wrong and just, scuttlebutt, that's my understanding of it until I find a new source.
Well, sure, but like, what was the pressure? Now, I know that there were Jews around the world. There were probably wealthy Jews in the United States that supported. I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah, think about it. I assume it's like we just saw this massive tragedy, the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were murdered systematically in one of the most horrible genocides in human history. And people were like, well, fuck, man. Well, we know they're trying to settle in this place. Let's British...
Wait. Okay, hold on. Wait, real quick. We need to get timelines correct, okay? Balfour Declaration was 1917. This was way before the Holocaust, okay?
I'm talking Holocaust. That's Truman's
okay, no, I understand. But the British mandate for Palestine, okay, that territory was administered for 2 or 3 decades prior to the Holocaust, okay? For 2 decades.
But they gave it up about 9 months, I think it was, before they were going to give it back to Palestine. They decided, never mind, we're going to give it to Israel. We're going to create Israel.
Okay, I would be curious to read about that. I don't know about that or what that is.
I mean, now I might be off by like a year or two on the date thing, but my understanding is that it was like just under a year left before they were going to give it back to Palestine when they gave it back.
Why would they give it back completely to Palestine? Palestine wasn't even like a group of people to give it to. There was no nation of Palestine at any point.
No, it wasn't a nation. These were the citizens pre-British control, Ottoman Empire, like before World War I, right? Before the end of World War I. These are original inhabitants. But then under British control, a significant amount of... You know what I fucking hate about this topic is every time you say Jew or Jewish, you can sound like a Nazi if you are criticizing Israel. Anyway.
Hold on, I'm not calling you a Nazi. I don't think any of this has to do with Nazism. I don't.
No, the jokes in chat get to me. Because at the end of the day, I'm a two-stater. Like I'm not.
Wait, we're not talking. Hold on, well, I don't care about any of that. We're not talking about 2-state or 1-state or anything.
I need to say it as I lay on thick criticism for the creation of Israel. I need to say I'm a two-stater. It's important because otherwise,
Okay. I don't see a lot of support around the world for the creation of the state of Israel prior to literally Israel winning their war of independence in 48. I don't see a lot of support around the world for that. And if anything, it seems to be the opposite, that there's a lot of fighting from Jewish people around the world to try to get them to establish that state.
Well, I tell you what,
yeah.
My understanding is that Britain was pressured by the United States and other Western countries to help them create Israel since they own that territory. I have a documentary on it that I had been watching the other day, and I only got 10 minutes in, so I'll watch that and come back.
Okay, sure, but to be clear, I don't think Britain didn't create Israel, right? Britain left. After the mandate ended, Britain packed up and left, and then 7 countries decided to go to war with Israel. Israel won after they declared independence. And okay, well, we're here now. Britain didn't establish the state of Israel. They declared independence.
They didn't establish the state of Israel, correct. They gave that land to a significant number of Jewish people who were settlers.
Did they give... fuck, I should have read... I know they were moving a lot of Jewish people in, but I don't know if any formal giving of land had happened because it doesn't seem like any of the people there ever agreed to a formal delineation of borders. Like all these white papers kept getting thrown out. At one point, or actually I think at like 3 different points, Arabs got so mad that Britain actually limited the amount of Jews immigrating into that territory. They were like, we're capping this to like 75,000 over some years. Like, you're not going to do it. So it seems like, if anything, Britain was starting to limit the number of Jews going in because Arabs were mad. And then at some point, once the mandate ended, Britain just like bounced. They were like, good luck, and they left.
So what's his name? That's why when it comes to I keep on saying Herzl. And
Herzl died in like 1907. I don't care about Herzl.
Because you have to understand that these people laid the foundation for what's happening now. Like, so when you were talking earlier to that other chatter, whoever it was, Vegan Games maybe, when they were coming in, like asking why you're looking up history, a lot of this is important now because the policies in place by the right-wing Israeli government now are predicated upon what was laid down by these people.
Okay, but then if that's true, like, I wouldn't analyze Marx to see what happened in Mao Zedong's China or in Stalin's like Soviet Union or in Vietnam or anything else,
because
right?
we know now that those are bastardizations of it. But
Well,
when
no,
it comes to this
hold
stuff,
on. But this guy was dead like 10 years before this Herzog guy was dead 15 years before the British mandate for Palestine even existed, right? So, like, why would I look to him? Wouldn't I just look, well, what was in the Israeli early, common laws, or what was in the Israeli Declaration of Independence?
Because if they're enacting policies in concert with the foundations laid by the father of Zionism and the founder of Israel, today, we would want to know exactly what they said, because it's important, because a lot of it hasn't changed.
Okay, well, if it hasn't changed, then I should just be able to see evidence of, like, Israel acting in accordance with that, right?
That's why I said but to understand that, you got to read up on the history of it, right? You got to read the words they laid down.
Well, sure, I understand the words. I understand the words they laid down, but then you should just be able to show me modern or even like historical examples of, like, here is Israel doing this thing that's in accordance with the theory that you need to know.
All right. Well, I will come back in a state where I am capable of more concisely making my arguments. All right. I just wanted to say that I don't just absorb opinions through osmosis. Otherwise, I'd have held every opinion you ever had for many, many years. You know what I mean?
Sure, that's fine. But just, if you, for coming into the future, so here's the type of sources that I want. I'm looking for, like, policies, actions by governments, like actual things that have actually happened. I'm wholly disinterested in single line statements by politicians and, like, 30-second YouTube videos, in quotes from people that died, 150 years ago. Like, I'm wholly uninterested in that. So if you can find me examples of, like, actions by governing bodies, nation states, laws being passed, groups, like, stuff like that, that's the type of stuff that I'm interested in for these types of arguments, for me, I think. If you have historical, like, quotes, arguments, that's interesting, but you have to link it to some type of action, I think.
All right, we'll do, buddy.
Okay, I love you.
All right, enjoy your dinner tomorrow.
Bye. Be careful. Something I was gonna, I don't remember if I was before I got here, but I think there were multiple flavors of Zionism that ran prior in Europe with different types of Zionist movements that existed. Fuck, we read this whole Balfour Declaration thing. It took us like 3 or 4 days. It's so fucking boring. But yeah, there were like 1 or 2 dudes, this Balfour guy and another guy, who spent a lot of time like running around trying to convince every motherfucker to have Great Britain make like an official statement on committing to setting up a land for the Jewish people. But even Jews consider Herzl the founder of Zionism. He was even posthumously buried in Israel. The stuff he did certainly had an impact on later events. Sure, but then you can just show the stuff that he had, the impact that he had, right? Just look up labor Zionism on Wikipedia. It should be a short article. That's a Zionism that concretely won, and it wasn't Herzl's. Jesus. Sorry. Okay. Labor Zionism. It's 10 o'clock. I need to sleep. Labor Zionism refers to the left-wing socialist variation of Zionism. For many years, it was the most significant tendency among Zionist organizations. It was seen as the Zionist sector of the historic Jewish labor movements of Eastern Europe and Central Europe, eventually developing local units in most countries with sizable Jewish populations, unlike the political Zionist tendency founded by Theodor Herzl and advocated by Chaim Weizmann, labor Zionists did not believe that a Jewish state would be created by simply appealing to the international community or to powerful nations such as the United Kingdom, Germany, or the former Ottoman Empire. Rather, they believed that a Jewish state could only be created through the efforts of the Jewish working class making aliyah to the land of Israel and raising a country through the creation of a labor Jewish society with rural kibbutzim and moshevims and an urban Jewish proletariat. Many theoreticians of the labor Zionist movement included Moses Hess, Nachman Sirkin, Burakov, and Aaron David Gordon, and leading figures of the movement included David Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir, and Burl Katz-Nelson. So that's pretty important because David Ben-Gurion was the first prime minister of Israel, and he was the guy that, did he author the, I don't think he solo authored the Israel Declaration of Independence, but he was the one that made like the statement. He was the primary national founder of the state of Israel. So it's interesting that he belongs more to the labor Zionist movement, if he's considered as such, as opposed to the political Zionist movement. But people in chat are saying the current Zionism is closer to Herzl's rather than, I don't know who would have been like the progenitor of this one, but it's also possible, too, that modern Zionism is more extreme than in the foundation ever as well, right? Ben-Gurion was a major figure for like 30 years leading up to Israel. Oh, sure. Not true. It seems that way that modern Zionism is more extreme because of the war. Isn't it progenitor? Progenitor? The progenitor. The progenitor. I think it is progenitor. Progenitor. The progenitor. Fuck me, dude. I can't spell this fucking word.
Progenitor.
Progenitor, okay. Okay, we're gonna go through more conflict, whatever the next war is after the 1948 Palestine War. I'll read more tomorrow, I think. What has been demystified to you after just this part of researching the Israel-Palestine history? It's just more reading, you know? Read. U.S. carries out airstrikes targeting Iranian proxy forces in Syria. Is this happening right now? Wait, really?